Don't sit.
Yeah, can't read.
Oh. Madam Chair, it is 5:30.
Thank you, Mr. Timekeeper. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting of Planning and Zoning to order. Thank you all for attending this evening. Before we get started, if there's anyone here who has come because of the Shaw property proposal, that is not on the agenda. They've withdrawn that. So if you're here for that, thank you for coming, but we will not be hearing that this evening. So we're going to start with a roll call, Shelby.
Yes, ma'am. Jim Giroux,
Here.
Daryl Whitworth,
Here.
Jeff Lawrence,
Here.
Cindy Scroggins, Tom Musselman,
Here.
Polly Rickert,
Here.
Tim Dooley,
Here.
Steve Thomas,
Here.
Janice Menking.
Here. Thank you. All right, so we have a quorum. We're going to not start at the beginning with the public hearings tonight. We're going to allow the plats and the site plans to go first so they don't have to sit around through all the public hearings this evening. So we're going to start with action item number 5A, which is request P2307, the final plat for Friendship Oaks subdivision phase 2. So is there someone here to make that presentation? You probably weren't expecting to be first, but we're going to let you do that.
All right, well, this is just the second unit of the 7 in Friendship Oaks. There's really, I know that this has been brought up before. I think it was a couple months ago. There were some issues with the lot frontage on some of the lots near the pond, but we addressed those problems, and I think it should just be good to go. I don't know if you guys have any questions about the plat in general.
Well, let's have Shelby make comments and then we'll see if there's any questions. Thank you, Shelby. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. What we have before us this evening is a final plat application for phase 2 of the Friendship Oaks subdivision, which consists of approximately 26 acres of land with 234 lots zoned R1A single family residential. The subject property is located on the south side of Friendship Lane, east of the intersection of Friendship Lane and Highway 87 South. A little bit of background on the property. This subdivision was annexed in 2018, and the Planning and Zoning Commission approved the preliminary plat for the Friendship Oaks development in January of 2021. The final plat for phase 1 was approved on August 4th of 2021, as well as a final plat for phase 4, which was approved in July of 2022. This particular final plat was previously denied by the Commission for failure to meet the minimum lot requirements, as Ryan had mentioned. However, they have reworked those lot widths and have resubmitted with a plat that meets the minimum development standards. And they are proposing 3 new roadways, all of which take access off of South Creek Street, the extension of South Creek Street, which is now in. They're also providing sidewalks along the south side of the South Creek Street extension, which are also in. And then it's my understanding that civil construction plans have been approved. So with that in mind, and also with the requirement for the park dedication fees, staff recommends approval conditioned upon approved addressing added to the final plat and then payment of the parkland dedication fees. They get a reduction in the parkland dedication fees because they've provided a park as part of phase 1. And so they'll be paying $250 per lot for a total of $58,500. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Shelby. Anybody have questions or comments? quiet lunch.
Can you give us an update on the whole project? How it's coming along?
As far as the residential part of the project, the single family residential, that's all I'm really in charge of. The final unit is with the city for approval. It's the first round, so I expect a couple more months before that even gets approved. But actually, wait, there was one more unit, so there would be one more after that. So we're still about a year and a half before the final unit gets started. So once this is completed, we'd be about halfway through.
Staff has received the Mylars for phase 1, and pending a couple of follow-up items, those could be recorded soon. Once they're recorded, building permits could be pulled for phase 1.
How many lots in phase 1? Sorry, how many lots in phase 1?
104-ish.
Thank you.
What's the status of the infrastructure?
So phase 1 is complete, substantially complete. Once they did the final walkthrough earlier this week. Once they touch up those final things, we'll have that done. So all the infrastructure for phase 1 will be done. Phase 2 is just now getting started.
And how much of the infrastructure are you going to complete before you start building? Are you going to complete it all the way to 87?
So no, the only requirements are to start building the houses for Unit 1. All we really need to do is make sure that we have a plan for the park, and get that through the city, and then we'll start building those homes here, hopefully in the next few months, at least for the first unit. This one's the second one, so we're still several months out from this one getting homes built. But
Thank you.
Any questions on this request?
Make a motion we approve this plat, pending the two things shall be mentioned.
All right, I have a motion by Tim. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Since I'm
Second by Tom. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, let's go to action item number 5B, request site plan 2308. A site plan extension for mixed-use development referred to as a SACO, located at the southwest corner of Friendship Lane and South Eagle Street. Excuse me.
I'm going to recuse.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Hi, good afternoon. I'll be brief so that Shelby can explain it much more efficiently than I can. But we have a site plan approval that was granted in November of 2021. We're coming up on an expiration. So this is an application to extend that approval for 1 year. There have been minimal changes to the approved site plan. Shelby can speak briefly to those, but a few of those would be that we've added carports to a few of the parking spaces. We've adjusted some of our grading as it relates to landscaping. We have added our electrical transformer plans that have been coordinated with CTC. I believe those are the major changes. Otherwise, there have been no other significant adjustments to the site plan. We also have a final and recorded plat, and then we also have our civil construction plans approved as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Shelby.
Thank you for that wonderful summary. That's correct. As y'all are aware, this site plan was originally approved November 3rd of 2021. And when these site plans are approved, they're good for 2 years. So as this particular project is nearing its expiration date, the applicant thought it was best to renew that site plan to allow them to go out to bid and obtain a general contractor and work through the building permit process. So that's why we're here tonight. The site plan, as staff reviewed it, very minimal changes, some additions of carports. There was a small change to the layout of the orientation of the leasing center located at the front of the property along Friendship Lane. It also resulted in some changes to a courtyard there, carports, some grading changes, very minimal. All in all, the site plan is as we approved it initially. So with that, staff recommends approval.
All right, thank you, Shelby. Anybody have any questions or comments?
So if we're extending this a year, is the extension date today, Shelby, or the end of November with your site plan?
Would be from the end of November, I believe.
The zoning on this is a PUD. I thought this was an MU
It's a
approval
PUD
when we
that-
did it.
It's a PUD that references the MU zoning standards.
Okay, so it's an MU base, but then we went with PUD.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, can you reference that this had an MU base in the notes, please, so that
Yes, ma'am.
we don't think it had a C2 or something else? Because when somebody else shows up and uses this one as a reference, saying we've already created a precedent, it would be good to know that this was a different one than maybe what they'll bring.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else?
I make a motion, we approve site plan 2308 presented.
All right, a motion by Jim.
Second.
Second. Carol, do we have any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go into public hearings. I just want to remind everybody, and those of you that haven't been here, while we've changed the process up a little bit from how we've done the public hearings in the past. So we're going to have the applicant make a presentation first, then we'll have staff make their report, and then we will hold a public hearing. If any of y'all are wanting to speak during the public hearing, we would appreciate you filling out the forms that were on the back table and giving those to Shelby, and then so that we'll have your names recorded properly in the minutes. And then after the public hearing is closed, then we will take action on it with council. So I would ask y'all all to hold your comments up here till the end, because it's a little different. So that's what we're going to be doing. Anybody have any questions on that process? All right, we're going to get started then with public hearing 4A, request Z2311 by Jesse Durden with Kept Property Group LLC to consider a conditional use permit for section 3.110 to allow a condominium use for property located at located one lot east of 591 Friendship Lane. Property is defined as German Immigration Company Lot 24. So let's go to A number 1, our presentation by the applicant. Thank you for coming back.
Good evening. My name is Jesse Durden. I'm the manager of Kept Property Group. Happy to bring this back to you tonight for your consideration. We listened, we heard your concerns from last time, and I feel like we've addressed each of those in a very thoughtful way, and we hope that you agree. I have brought a couple people with me to talk a little bit about some of the finer points of the project that aren't necessarily technical, but just for your interest, so that you'll hear from a couple folks on our team shortly. Our primary objective with this project is to provide high quality affordable housing. The condo zoning, non-STR, no short-term rentals. The condo conditional use allows us to get the densities that we need to provide homes of roughly 1,000 square feet in size for a price point around $300,000, which is something that's just not available in the market today. We are catering these towards first responders, nurses, teachers, folks that live and reside in Fredericksburg. That's what we've heard that the community wants, and that's what we're here to provide. And in order to, I know that there's a lot of concern in the public about potential loopholes or ways that people can do STRs. Well, we've gone as far as we can at this point by adding a note on this concept plan that says STRs are prohibited in this development. So that, in addition to the changes in your UDO and your processes, I think provide you really good protection against that. In addition, we have shifted the project to the west. We are no longer taking access off of Friendship. Instead, we're taking access off of South Creek. We have submitted a plat. There was some concern that there was some vacant area shown, and there's some concern about what that might be developed to in the future. The request was that we replat into 2 lots, and that replat has been submitted, and a couple rounds of comments have been addressed on that one. I'm sure Shelby will speak to you about that. In addition, we added additional parking. We are currently 9 spaces more than is required by the ordinance. And we have the central common area that, should the need arise in the future, should there be parking issues, we can have additional parking there. Our goal right now is to create that as a common area gathering space. We've submitted some landscape selections and try to give you an idea of what we would like to do there in that central common area and along the front of these homes. That's it for my portion of the presentation. I'd like to ask our builder, Shay, to come up here and present to you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. My name is Shay Abbott. I live at 11008 County Road 175 in Iowa, Texas, and I serve as Vice President of Construction for Ket Classic Homes. As Jesse mentioned, we feel that there is a specific need for housing for a particular population in this community. And I'm a San Angelo boy myself. I've spent many hours on the tennis court with Coach King every summer for as long as I can remember. Our designer, Shana Thompson, our president, Jesse Durden, as well as our construction superintendent, Chase Warner, are all deeply rooted in this region and maintain contacts with friends and family in the area. All of whom express the need for affordable housing for their teachers, first responders, and young families. So we've put our heads together and have come up with a product that we feel is a healthy mix of functionality, aesthetic appeal, and affordability. Our mission is to put a quality home in place for members of the community, and not for outside investors, which is why we're seeking condominium approval so that we can actually restrict an individual from purchasing more than 2 of these units. So we with this project, we want to emphasize local values, community values, family values. We've incorporated a green space, as Jesse discussed, to hopefully provide a common area for neighbors to become friends and form lifelong connections. And one of our primary objectives is to ensure that the housing is accessible for local people of this community and not outside investors only interested in renting them out. So we will be promoting a sense of long-lasting community of local family-owned houses that families can cherish for future generations. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your service to the city of Fredericksburg, and we hope to be able to provide value to an already wonderful community. Thanks.
Thank you.
Got one more.
Good evening. I'm Melissa Stout. I'm a realtor here in Fredericksburg with Riata Ranch Realty. And I've been working with Jesse on this project for the last several months. Just to kind of speak to, my world in real estate and the market, and it's been a crazy year, but we have a lot on the market right now. And if I were to have a buyer looking in the $300,000 to $350,000 range, I have one property to show them. This is it. I've got the MLS listing. That's it. I mean, that's all that's out there right now for anything permanent. It's a house that is 900 square feet. It was built in 1950, and so that's their option. I mean, they have something new in that same price point where they have something similar to that, and it's been the struggle, I think we all know for a while now. So I've known Jesse for a long time. We went to college together. I know his intent behind the project is to create something meaningful and necessary to the community. So we just really hope you guys get behind it, support it, 'cause I think it's something that could do good for, it's a good option for people to have something that would be restricted against short-term rentals and give people, you know, somewhere to live that they'd be proud of. So, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Melissa.
Melissa. All right, Shelby.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you, Jesse and team, for that wonderful summary. As they had mentioned, what we have before us is a request for a conditional use permit to allow condominium use here. Previously, you have seen this application, but on lot 2, not lot 1. So the applicant took your feedback and relocated the development to lot 1, which allows them to take access off of South Creek Street. The development at its core is the same. It's 22 single-story buildings. And allows for additional parking as requested by the commission in y'all's last consideration of their application. In addition, they have submitted a plat application. I know before that was a concern, the property wasn't platted yet. They've submitted that plat application. They've made it through one round of comments with city staff. The revisions have been submitted and staff is currently reviewing those. And they've met all of our comments that we were provided, so we'll continue to review that process with the anticipation of approval shortly. The project is proposing no sidewalks within the development, but they do have a sidewalk along that South Creek Street extension that has been added. And they are also proposing dark sky compliant lighting, centrally located green space, and the additional parking as requested. As part of our review for conditional use permit applications, there's 13 specific criteria that the applicant must meet as part of the review process. And as staff worked with the applicant and reviewed the site plan that we have before us this evening, staff has found that the applicant has met those requirements. There's 56 parking spaces, 1 space per bedroom, plus 1 space per unit for guest parking. There are 13 one-bedroom units and 9 two-bedroom units, which require 31 spaces, plus 22 guest spaces for a total of 53 spaces. And they've provided 62, so my apologies. The requirement is 56, they've provided 62. Utilities are available to serve the property, and if there is a requirement for an extension of infrastructure, that would be at the developer's expense. There is a requirement for a landscaping plan. The applicant is aware of that, and they plan on addressing that and working with staff to develop a landscaping plan for approval. There's also the requirement for a parkland dedication in the form of $500 per unit for a total of $11,000. And as part of the CUP process, staff sent out the public hearing notifications. We did receive 3 responses, 2 in protest. One of those was specific to concerns regarding short-term rental uses, which we know will not be occurring on site. And then 1 letter submitted in support of the development. So with that in mind, staff recommends approval based upon or conditioned upon approval of the final plat. It will also need to come back for a condominium plat, and then approved addressing plan, landscaping and screening plan, and approved civil construction plans. And as an addition to staff's comments, staff also requested the addition of a sidewalk along Friendship Lane as part of the conditional use permit, which is a little different than the first application that you saw. We wanted to make sure that you're aware of that request and recommendation.
Thank you, Shelby.
Has that request been agreed upon by the?
I'm sorry?
Has that request been agreed upon? An additional sidewalk on Friendship Lane?
Jesse, would you like to speak to that?
Oh, sorry, I was told I wasn't in there.
I may have missed this note because this is the first that I recall hearing about the Friendship Lane sidewalk. We certainly have planned to do one along South Creek Street. We hope to do some internal to the development. If Friendship Lane is recommended and required, I would say post the improvements that you guys have looked at in terms of the acceleration lane eastbound. We're very much open to that. And I'm okay including that as a condition to tonight's CUP.
Thank you. All right. I would entertain a motion now to open the public hearing.
I make a motion we adjourn. We open public hearings each.
I have a motion by Jim.
Second.
Second by, who is that? Oh, all right, Mr. Lawrence. All right. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carried. All right, is there anyone here who would like to speak for or against or any comments on this application?
I move we go out of public hearings into regular session.
Second.
I have a motion by Tim and a second by Tom. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Now, does anyone have any questions or comments?
I have a comment concerning the sidewalk on Friendship. I'm very much in favor of putting sidewalks on the south side of Friendship. We have sidewalks on the north side of Friendship, which was one of I think the best things we did with the Friendship Lane extension. The sidewalks on Friendship are utilized all the time. The concern I have is that with all the development that we have on Friendship Lane, on the south side of Friendship Lane, that there needs to be a way for the people that live on the south side to go east, and especially toward the Walmart area. And I think that necessitates a sidewalk. And I would, my recommendation would be that any development that we have on the south side needs to put sidewalks on the Friendship side. Mr. Durden could be the first.
I seldom agree with Mr. Musselman, but
Thank you.
this particular case, I think he's spot on.
It's because he's from Southwest Loop.
Shelby, approximately how many feet would that sidewalk be required?
And would that be just lot 1 or lot 1 and 2?
Well, the application before you tonight is specifically for lot 1. So that requirement would be for lot 1. And it appears to be 418 feet.
Would it be fair to ask the applicant, now that we've asked you to switch and you've been so kind, do you have any idea what you're going to do with the other lot now at this point? Now, I don't think we have to hold you to that, but it would be nice for us to know if we can ask.
We're still in the same position that we were last time. We really feel like 22 units is a responsible number to get a feel, make sure that we're
Sure.
reading the market right, and then we'll come back to that second lot and get your input. Go from there.
You just don't have anything drawn yet, do you?
No, sir. No, sir.
All right, thank you.
But you will if you sell them all within 6 months.
Most likely.
Question for staff, kind of going along with what Mr. Musselman said. If we're going to have sidewalks on the north and south side of Friendship Lane, how are they going to get across if they're walking? Run? No. Well, I guess they could jaywalk, but that's not very good.
There's a precedent for that on Main Street.
I mean, along with the increased traffic along Friendship Lane, that's something we're definitely looking at the entire stretch of Friendship. So.
Well, that's why I mentioned it, because it's we're going to have to do something.
Can you say what that might be? I mean, I know there's a light at Friendship Lane, and there's a light at 87. I know. I mean, potentially. I mean, is it like a school? Stupid question. Is it like a school crossing or something with stripes in the middle of the block or something, or an intersection?
Or potential light at Friendship and Creek.
You know, that's what we're starting to look at is the signal warrants.
Right.
You know, nothing meets currently, but as these type of developments continue to occur, that's something that may end up being warranted. And we're already in talks with TxDOT about maintenance of signals off system. Currently, all the signals are on state roadways, so this would be the first along a non-state roadway.
And you're aware of the traffic on Friendship?
Quite aware, yes, sir.
Thank you.
So has the Creek Street extension been done?
It's underway.
It's a portion of it.
Yeah,
so the connection out to 87 will not occur until a later phase.
But enough to catch his development. I mean, enough.
Oh, it's done.
Yes, that's already been paved.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't know that.
Should go visit it.
Okay, you want to raise them?
I think Polly has
sorry,
something.
I have a question stroke comment for staff about trash, because typically in these types of situations, we look at how they're gonna handle trash. So help me understand why we're allowing them to do individual cans in this development, and we're not allowing individual cans in other similar developments. We've denied them in the past, so why are we allowing it in this one and not requiring a common dumpster?
And my question is, if they're individually owned, are they not entitled to a can if they are individually metered? Are they not going to be a customer of the city for waste disposal?
That's correct. Unlike other developments that are multifamily, the condominium is a type of single-family product. They would be entitled to their own
compare
utilities.
this one to the one down Friendship at Eagle that is an STR condo of only 8 units. And we required them to do either a corral or a separate dumpster down on Eagle Street for those 8 units. Yet we're allowing individual cans being done per unit.
That could have been, that's the Bob Mosley development. And that could have been done because there was no way for a trash truck.
And my question is, have we confirmed with the city?
Can a truck go?
Can they get through there
Can
safely?
they maneuver?
Where are the cans going to go when they come out? Where are they going to be put when they go back to the house? I don't see any references to how that's going to be handled in here, and I didn't see a requirement by the city to alternatively put either a common corral for all the cans to go into, or separately a commercial dumpster. So I'm just asking, why are we treating this one differently than we have it?
I would ask the applicant, do you have a plan for waste collection, solid waste?
So we have obviously concerns about waste. These homes are going to generate waste. I'm very familiar with commercial development where we have shared dumpsters. I'm familiar with the issues that can arise with smell, rodents, things of that nature, illegal dumping, things of that nature. So what our plan was for this project, and kind of goes a little bit deeper into our vision, is that this is really a hands-free project for someone that owns a unit there. They don't have to mow their grass. They don't have to irrigate their grass. They don't have to pull their single can down to the street or pull it back up. That'll be all part of the management agreement. Maintenance of the common area falls under that too. So I'm fairly particular in our neighborhood where I live. You know, trash cans go out today and they come back tonight or first thing in the morning, and that's just how I think this community ought to run. So.
Have we confirmed with our sanitation department that they can get their trucks through that private drive, pick up those cans safely?
So I don't think the city's been approached about providing service to this area. So are you working with a private contractor for that, or what is your intent?
No, we're trying to get the use approved right now.
Okay.
You know, we have a lot of work left to do.
Okay.
I will tell you that these roadways, and I guess engineering can speak to this, but they are designed by professional engineers according to city standards, including fire access. So you can imagine a fire truck can get around here. I believe, and with, you can see at the kind of northwestern portion of the property, there's a section, a dead end. That's for things like trash trucks to turn around should they need to. So I think, you know, it's certainly our intent to meet it. If desire is for a common dumpster, or requirement by city utilities is for a common dumpster, we can certainly accommodate that.
So that's something we would review. You know, if you want city services, I agree. I don't see any issue with our trucks getting in there and servicing dumpsters or private receptacles. So that's just something, maybe make it a condition of any
Yeah, I'm just saying, typically, that is one of our items that we always look at on these things, and it wasn't on this. It was in the letter, and there was a note response to it, but the response was individual cans. That was the only response, and then there was nothing in our paperwork saying how it was going to be handled and whether that was sufficient or not. So this is kind of a note to staff as well that, you know, if we're going to do it on one development, we need to do it consistently on all of these and make sure we note these things before we come in here. But I think we need to have documented what the solid waste disposal plan is for this development. That's new news that you're going to valet the waste cans. That wasn't in the packet anywhere, so we have to assume that the owner is going to be taking it out and the city's going to be doing it unless you tell us otherwise.
And that be addressed in the proposal of the condominium regime.
Well, my recollection is this is when we approve it, is when we do these things. So I don't, you know, and again, where we've done things like that before and then it didn't come back and we got bid on it, I want to make sure we don't get that.
So as part of the conditional use permit process, you could place a condition such as dumpsters, location of dumpster enclosures, wheelie bins if you wanted them in a particular location, or corral or screens. That could all be a condition of the CUP request. As part of the condominium plat, when it returns, the trash wouldn't be looked at as part of the plat process, the condominium plat process.
Okay, so it needs to be addressed.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now, the question is, Mick, how can we do that? How should we do that at this point? Because this is a little bit different for us.
I mean, is it even legal for us to make valeting the bins a requirement?
I don't think so. I think we just have to, if you want to add a condition regarding solid waste collection, you could approve the plat if you wish with the condition that plans for solid waste collection shall be shown on the plan.
Yeah, but is it going to be?
Subject to staff approval, or?
Well, anything we do for solid waste collection has to be approved by the sanitation department.
But
You could add that if you want.
Yeah, my question is, so on other ones that, smaller than this,
All right.
we've required a screening area where the cans are put and then they're put out and then they're brought back to a common fenced-in area. That's one option. The other is that you provide something at each unit that where the cans are supposed to go, a designated area unit by unit. But now we're in the point where we need to come up with something today. So
Sure.
you can either do a corral for the individual cans on site, or you can do a dumpster on site.
May I?
Yeah.
I would, we want to get it addressed. I think the city utilities needs to weigh in and say, hey, this is what we prefer. This is what we've seen. Staff, I mean, we'd love to work with all those in depth, thorough analysis of what's best. So condition the CUP with maybe an acceptable sanitation service agreement with the city of Fredericksburg or something along those natures. I'd be very happy with that. I just, I don't want to jump to a solution that may actually not be web sanitation.
So to speak to Mr. Dooley's comment about each one of these buildings is individually metered. Okay, each building will have a individual account with the City of Fredericksburg Utility Department. So here's the, Evan.
Well, just to answer that question, being that it's all on one lot, our public works policy would just be to meter this right away as a master meter. Any individual metering beyond that would be up to development sub-meter units.
Okay.
So that would negate any need for public utility easements or anything.
Okay. So the question I have is, number one, do we have a true condominium complex anywhere else in town?
Is that thing Gale Gallia empty?
Is Carriage Park individual trash cans?
Yes.
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 So that's the closest.
But it's full, is it private drives or those city streets?
Private.
And are those screened? Did we require screening on those buildings to where they screen their individual cans or put them in their garages? Are they allowed to leave the cans out?
There was a screening requirement for the development as a whole. I'm not familiar with screening requirements for the cans.
Part of the reason I ask is because in a normal R1 or R1A neighborhood, you've got enough space between the homes to where somebody can pull it to the back, put it where you don't see it, and then bring it out. You've got 22 on 3 acres, which I admire that. It's almost 9 per acre density. It's great. But it means that you have to be more conscious about the design and application of how you collect the trash, where you put it, how you screen it, because you're packed in a lot tighter. So I'm not trying to be contrary. I like the plan. It's just, it's a step that we didn't fully address in detail up to now. Now we need to figure out how to word it so that it does get fully addressed and it doesn't just get left.
Mr. Durden, when I'm looking at the map here, like with the first 2 units, that's a common driveway between 2 units with parking behind.
Yes, sir. That's
So
correct.
a normal, when Tom goes out in the morning, I would be pulling my trash can from behind my house down my driveway and put it in the front, and then I would take it back just like I do right now down the street on Friendship Lane. So Polly, I understand your concern, but whether Mr. Durden's management company is going to be pulling the cans to the street, or the individual owner pulling the cans to the street, isn't this like a R1A? I mean, it's more dense, but isn't this an individual owner pulling his can to the front of the street and then taking it back?
Well, this is R2 plus density, so I don't think it compares to R1 or R1A.
Okay, well,
I just think there needs to be some sort of a designated placement of the trash cans for each condominium, and it needs to be on there, and y'all just need to put a designated spot for the individual cans so that they aren't just left wherever.
We absolutely agree, and we've had those conversations internally about where those cans stack, where the AC units stack, because that's important too, and how those items are screened, and certainly how trash is managed over time. So we want it to be a really first-class place, and we think the best way to do that in terms of trash and landscape is to handle it via management.
Well, that's a good point. However, I'll say management companies can turn over. Projects last forever. And if you don't get it right when it's being built, you should not be relying on the operator to be continuous for 30 to 50 years and do it the same way. And if it's part of the operations of one operator and they sell it to somebody else, that does not mean that the next operator is going to do valet service on the trash. It's just like we do with STRs or anything else. You can't just sit here and assume that the one coming before us is the only one that's ever going to be operating that piece of property forever. So that's what I'm saying. And I'm nitpicking on trash, but I'm just using this as a comment about a lot of things that we look at. That you can't just say, because it's this operator and that's their intent, we should approve it. You gotta get it in writing in the deal and not rely on somebody's intent afterwards.
What if we do this and we approve the PUP, but we also make it part of the condition that trash be out of sight?
Trash receptacles would be stored behind.
Out of sight.
Well, just they're stored in screened designated areas.
It could be in someone's backyard.
It could be,
It's
yeah.
perfectly
But they're in
fine.
a screen. The trash receptacles are identified on the site plan in screened designated areas. And that
Could that just be behind? Could it be behind the condo?
I don't care where they
What,
put
does
it.
it have
I
to be
just want to make
screened?
sure that they have a screen designated area on the site.
Do I need to build a screened thing for my can 500 feet down the road?
Are you comfortable adding screened, designated placement of trash cans on the site
As a condition of this.
as a condition of this approval.
Okay.
And are you comfortable with having the city utilities department confirm that they can adequately pick up those cans safely as a condition of this approval?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to make that motion? Or is there anyone else?
Were there
who has
any other
comments?
items that we needed
Any
to?
other comments?
I like the idea that if they need more parking, they have the ability to create more parking on site. I think that's a real plus with this development because everyone needs more parking. We never have enough parking.
All right, Holly, you ready to make the motion?
Right. Writing before I say anything. Okay. So I move that we approve request Z-2311 with the following conditions: that the applicant adds screened designated trash locations for all trash receptacles on the property, that the applicant meets with city sanitation and gets written agreement on the adequacy and safety of the method of disposal of trash from the location, that the applicant agrees to add sidewalks along the Friendship Lane frontage of the property, and also conditioned on the approved final plat, approved condominium plat, approved addressing plan, approved landscape and screening plan, and approved civil construction.
Second.
Is that you, Tom? Is that you, Tom?
Second by Tom.
All right, I have a motion by Polly and I have a second by Tom. Is there any other discussion?
Madam Chair, I request to do a roll call vote, please.
All right. Is there any other discussion before we have the roll call vote? She's still muted. Okay, we're ready for a roll call vote.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Jim Giroux,
Yes.
Daryl Whitworth,
Yes.
Jeff Lawrence,
Yes.
Tom Musselman,
Yes.
Holly Rickard,
Yes.
Tim Dooley,
Yes.
Steve Thomas,
Yes.
Janice Menke.
Yes. All right, motion carries. All right, thank you all. Thank you all for working with us. All right, let's go to the next public hearing. Number 4B, request Z-2316 by Whitney Cuff with Mustard Designs to consider a conditional use permit per section 3.320 of the zoning ordinance to allow for general warehousing and distribution and light manufacturing uses for property located at 977 Kerr Road. Whitney, there you are. Sorry.
Well, while they're pulling that up, good evening. My name is Whitney Koch. I'm with Mustard Design Architects. I appreciate the board's consideration tonight of our project located on Kerr Road. We are requesting to do a business park located off of Kerr Road, just right at the edge of the city limits in town. We are requesting that we have a conditional use permit for the addition of general warehousing as well as light manufacturing uses for the property. I will note that I did not specifically list limited warehousing and distribution. I may need to get some confirmation from city staff as to the difference between them to determine whether or not that would be an applicable use for the site as well. Okay, no problem. So our project is going to be done in 2 phases. As I mentioned, we are located off Kerr Road at the near the intersection of Tivydale Road and Kerr. We are currently an undeveloped site other than a single existing entry drive, which is actually going to be removed whenever we do our development for a new entry off of Kerr. We have an opportunity, or my client has requested to do a business park on the property. We intend to build 3 of the buildings toward the rear of the property first, with a future development adding 2 more buildings toward the front of Kerr Road at a later date, pending the leasing of the current tenant of the first round of tenant phasing. Right now, our project does provide for a single entry off of Kerr Road. We have 2 optional or secondary entries that the owner is considering at the back of the property, which actually exit through his property that is located directly behind the facility. Right now, that's not set in stone. It's more just that's something we'd like to explore with the city as an option for uses on the site. Other elements with the site, we have considered detention. We have considered how vehicular access as far as tenant uses are going to be located on the site plan, as well as guest or those that are visiting the tenant uses will circulate on site. We thank you for getting that up. So our property is surrounded by other similar uses. We have CrossFit that is located at the corner of Pica and Kerr, as well as the manufacturing facility just planned south of us as well. And of course, all of the multiple business use and kind of industrial warehousing uses at front Tivydale Road. We are requesting our intent by the client would be to utilize the facility for all of the various options allowed under the M2 media manufacturing uses, but also keeping in mind that, for his business type and businesses similar to his, wanting to be able to provide those opportunities through the manufacturing and warehousing options that are available through the conditional use permit process. We have considered as well, we've had conversations with the city regarding fire access, as well as detention, signage, and waste management and collection services, which we have shown and illustrated on the site plan as well. I welcome any questions, but as of right now, that I feel like picks up all the points and highlights of our project.
Thank you, Whitney.
Shelby? Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Whitney. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a property located at 977 Kerr Road that would allow for 2 uses as part of that conditional use: general warehousing and distribution, as well as light manufacturing. The proposed development would include 5 single-story buildings that are approximately 9,000 square feet and have 5 tenant spaces in each building. The anticipated uses are professional offices. However, the applicant wanted the option to market for general warehousing and distribution, as well as light manufacturing uses for this development. Staff has provided the definitions for both of those uses. And in addition, page 56 of your packet provides the zoning ordinance and all of the other principal permitted uses for this property. The site is approximately 4.4 acres, and the building coverage proposed is 23%. The impervious cover proposed is 82%. The heights are all 1 story. The parking is 117 parking spaces provided, with 114 required. Staff broke down those based on general retail, professional office uses, including general warehousing and limited manufacturing. All of those uses require 1 parking space per 400 square feet. The utilities are available to serve the property, and if extensions are required, it would be at the developer's expense. Detention would be evaluated as part of civil construction plan review, and a landscape and screening plan are required. This property is located next to additional uses that are very similar, including the Heartland Enterprises use, which is just south of this particular development. I think Whitney had mentioned CrossFit to the north, and there's just some other general warehousing uses in this vicinity. And as part of our review, we reviewed for those 13 specific items that you must meet in order to obtain a conditional use permit. And staff finds that this application as submitted meets those requirements. The requested additional uses of the general warehousing and distribution and light manufacturing are in keeping with the existing neighboring sites. And with this in mind, staff recommends approval conditioned upon an approved addressing plan, an approved landscape and screening plan, and approved civil construction plans. And also, staff did submit public hearing notices to all property owners within 200 feet, and we didn't receive any responses.
Thank you, Shelby. With that information, I will now entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Make that motion.
Motion by Jim, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Tom. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, is there anyone here who'd like to make comments on this application?
I move to go to public hearing back into regular session.
All right, motion by Tim, second by Tom. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, anyone here have questions or comments?
Okay, is a permitted use, I see on page 56 that restaurants are permitted use. Does that change the parking calculations?
It would. But that parking would be based on the square footage of the unit. So until such a use is requested, we wouldn't know what that parking requirement would be. But the plan as presented does provide more parking than required. So there is wiggle room there.
I just wanted to come in case I could add to that, but Shelby did a wonderful job.
Is this city limits or ETJ?
City limits.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Looking at the map in our packet on page 54, subject property is number 977. I assume that number 835 is CrossFit. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Right. And plot number 761 is immediately adjacent.
Correct.
Is that Mr. Wainwright's property?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. And how is that property zoned at this point? Do we know?
According to this map, it shows R2.
It is the same zoning as the subject property.
Which is
M2 medium manufacturing.
Other questions, comments? Anybody ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with staff conditions.
Motion by Jim, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Daryl. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carried. Thank you.
Who ended up with my jump drive?
Again?
Who's got my jump drive?
That's proprietary, isn't it?
All right, let's go to public hearing 4C. Request Z 2315 by Bob Walsh and Hayden Simmons to change the land use from low-density residential, commercial, and change the zoning from R1 single-family residential to C1 neighborhood commercial for two properties located in the 500 block of West Live Oak between 528 South Milam and 610 West Live Oak Street. Let's go to the presentation by the applicant. Hi.
How are y'all?
Good.
Good.
Would you don't mind going to the zoning map real quick? So just under a year ago, last year, I came in here to do a zoning change for the property at the corner of West Live Oak and South Mile. We decided to not give the entire property C1 zoning, but keep it at that boundary point of where we changed it. And the reason for that was because we wanted to be able to keep it in line with the neighboring property that's currently R1 that we're discussing. One of the concerns that y'all had as staff whenever we approved that corner lot was these two staying as R1 with the hopes of at someday they would then turn to C1. Since then, I have gone on a mission to find the owners and get the listings to be able to do that. And that's what I'm here for today, is to ask for approval on the lot for 608 West Live Oak, along with the one of Mr. Simmons, in which we would carry that line out to make about approximately 1.35 acres as C1, and then the remaining tract of Mr. Walsh's, or of Mr. Simmons, that hits West Walsh, to stay R1 so that they could eventually do something with that at that point. Outside of that, it would look nice to be able to see a solid block of C1 right there instead of a weird R1 kind of sticking out in the middle of everything. I believe that when we discussed this last year, when we changed that corner lot, that y'all agreed with that. So that's what I'm here for today, to see if we could get approval for these two properties to change from R1 to C1 for the land use and zoning change.
All right, thank you. Cheryl?
Thank you, Adam. That was a wonderful summary. This property may look familiar to you. You have seen the property, as Adam mentioned, on the corner of South Milam and West Live Oak recently, both for zoning and a land use change, as well as a plat and a site plan. So to step back and focus on this property specifically, what they're asking for is a future land use classification change from low density residential to commercial, and a zoning change from R1 to C1 neighborhood commercial for these two properties that are located in the 600 block of West Live Oak. You'll notice to the right of the highlighted sections, one property is highlighted as a smaller square, and it abuts the 507 West Walsh. A secondary property is also considered in this application, and it's the larger property that extends past West Walsh. As I previously mentioned, the property at 528 South Milam went through the zoning and land use change process back in 2022. And as part of the review, planning and zoning and city staff agreed that the properties fronting on West Live Oak should be zone C1, but those that abutted West Walsh should remain R1. And at the time, the consideration was for the property, the stranded property that's on West Walsh, 507 West Walsh, being R1, and using that rear property line to establish the C1 zoning line. A rendition of that is in front of you, and it's also found on page 65 of your packet. So staff's recommendation is to match that existing zoning line that we established at 528 South Milam, that uses the rear property line of 507 West Walsh as the C1 boundary line.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Make that motion.
A motion by Jim, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Daryl. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, is there anyone here who wants to make any comments on this application?
I move we go out of public hearing back into regular session.
Second.
Motion by Tim, second by Jim. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, anybody have any comments or questions on this?
Nailed it.
So and basically, we're just cleaning up West Lightmount.
Right.
Absolutely.
And this is what we had talked about
Right,
when we
the
did
last
the
time.
previous one, but the other owners weren't available to participate.
Right.
Anybody ready to make a motion?
I move to approve.
Motion by Tim, second by Jim. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right,
Thank you,
thank
Adam.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Adam.
Anybody want to take a quick break before we go into the next session? All right, let's do a quick 5-minute break and then we will be back in session. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
How you doing? All right. And I'll let you know. Good about it. It's definitely. I have. Yeah.
But it was upsizing. We say that the city would, they'd pay for any upsize.
What's in the other plan?
They're paying for every.
So I don't know.
Yeah, we have confirmation that being available. But I didn't want to go. People want to talk to people. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. So it's good. Yes. Yes. You know what? He came from one of the job sites. So he was all but he was happy to see something was going to happen to the property. Everybody, we've approached that generous 5 minutes that the chair gave us, so let's sit in chairs. Oh, I know. And that includes you two. Sorry. Don't want to crunch on the microphone. Said Watson again. Yeah. Well, I told him to please have an adult beverage. He replied that he was on his second. He is indeed a gentleman and a scholar.
All right, everyone, let's go to item number 4D, public hearing, request Z 2310. Okay, I'm going to butcher this one by Nick Scooteris. Is that right? Scooteris? Which one is it? Scooteris. With DC Partners to consider an amendment to the planned unit development of the PUD for property located at 1149, 1293, 1389, 1413, and 1449 U.S. Highway 87 North, formerly referred to as the Seven Hills Development, now called the Muse. All right, we'll have a presentation by Mr. Scooteris.
Well, before Nick, good evening, everybody. My name is Acho Azuike. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of DC Partners, a real estate development and investment firm in Houston. And we're excited to be here because this marks a major milestone for the project where we get to come in, present the culmination of our work that we've been working on with the city staff and collaboration. Nick Gutierrez is going to come and tell you a little bit more about the collaboration efforts that he's been leading here himself. He's been, been a base here in Fredericksburg for some time since he's been working on the project. Our talented team at Merriman Anderson Architects, they're going to talk about the design efforts and how we've tried to seamlessly weave what we've been doing into the fabric of the Fredericksburg community, build something that looks like it truly belongs here. And then we have our consultants here as well to kind of talk about how we collaboratively work with city staff to answer a lot of the questions and address some of the concerns. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Acho. Again, my name is Nick. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us tonight. We're excited. So let's kind of get right to it. I'm going to do a brief introduction of the team, like Acho had said. It's myself, Acho, and Melissa from the DC Partners team. John and Jennifer from Merriman Anderson Architects. Brian from Dunaway Associates, that's our civil engineer. And then Rick is our legal counsel. So he's been kind of helping us through the process of getting all the documentation together. These are some quick highlights about the company, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what we've done in the past. We're an experienced development company. We've finished mixed-use projects like you're going to see tonight. So we're confident that we can stand in front of you today and say we can deliver this project, and we're excited about it. So first, we're going to go over the site plan. I'll kind of walk you through the concept of the site from a bird's eye view, and then I'll hand it off quickly to the architectural team, and they're going to take you through renderings of the project and kind of give you an explanation from the architectural point of view. We've met with city staff quite a few times. We've brought our team up to Fredericksburg multiple times. We've walked not only our property, but we've walked Main Street. We've had a lot of think tank sessions in terms of how we're going to deliver the look and feel of this project. So they're going to get into the nitty gritty of the look and feel of the project through all those renderings. And then I'm going to jump back up here and we'll talk about some additional considerations. We'll talk about the staff recommendations that were issued to you guys in a memo. And then we will also go ahead and give our brand presentation of the Muse, just to kind of give you more look and feel, because not only have we been working on the actual technical aspects of the project, but there's background work that we'd like to present to you and give you an idea of what the finished product will look like. So with that being said, let's dive into the site plan. Okay, so we have a 22-acre site that we're looking at. I'm sure you're all very familiar with the corner of 290 and 87. So, you know, from the get-go, we wanted this to be a mixed-use project. We wanted this to be a horizontal mixed-use project where there's a little bit of all aspects involved, and you see that here today as we're looking at the project. As you start on the right-hand side of the page and you work your way left, the uses will change. So overall, we have almost 1 million square feet of lot. It's closer to 950,000. And I'm just going to talk in building coverage square footages right now. So in terms of retail, coverage on the site for the retail portion is a little over 30,000 square feet of that 950,000 square feet. So I'm talking rough numbers here just to give you an idea. As you work your way left, you'll see a condominium building, which will be for sale condominiums. The building coverage for that is around 40,000 square feet. You'll pass by the Sunday Home, which is a historic home on our property, to the spa. The building coverage for the spa is around 25,000 square feet. You'll work your way to the hotel. Building coverage there is around 70,000 square feet, and the ballroom next door is around 20,000 square feet. Now, these are just building coverages, so that's not the actual use space within the ballroom. When we get to that use, we can talk a little bit more about how big that ballroom is if you'd like. But finally, you'll end with the residential piece, which has a structured parking garage in the center. That is a fully wrapped garage, so you will not be able to see it from Bob Moritz or 87. That was one of the things we wanted to take into consideration. And the building coverage for the multifamily portion is around 137,000 square feet. So hopefully that kind of gives you a brief overview of the site. You know, again, horizontal mixed use is the goal here. I'll touch on parking. You know, we understand parking is important. We've done quite a few developments that are mixed use, and we actually had a shared use parking analysis done. Based on those findings, we settled right around 900 parking spaces at a minimum that we want to provide. We wouldn't go any lower than that based on what we have presented here today. We've also done a traffic impact analysis, which our civil engineering team has worked on with both TxDOT, and they've shared it with the city of Fredericksburg. So if we want to get into a little bit more technicality on the traffic impact analysis, we can do that. I'll probably have to defer more to Brian, who's here with the civil group. But we have done that, and we do plan to finalize that upon approval of the project. So we touch on traffic impact. We can probably talk about entry to the site. This site had a previous PUD approval. I believe the main uses were hotel and retail. We tried to mirror the exact entries onto the site as were previously done on the previous PUD. You have 3 entries along 87, all of which TxDOT is aware of, and then you have 1 entry off of 290. So I believe, and I'll defer to Brian on this, but I believe that almost aligns exactly with what we had or what the previous landowner had for their PUD approval on the site. What else? So as we're looking at the site plan, you know, just keep in mind horizontal mixed use. We wanted this to be a walkable development where somebody comes here, they park their car, and they're kind of walking this campus of something that feels like it's been here forever. So that's the goal in mind. When you look at the retail, you'll notice there's a large plaza in the center. We want people to come there and gather. We want it to feel a little bit like Main Street, right? We're kind of extending the experience from downtown Fredericksburg onto this wonderful property that's a catalyst for the rest of West Main Street. So, you know, think walkable, think, you know, a thing that kind of clicked in our mind was the European feel, the German feel of being able to walk from the retail to your condominium or from the hotel to the spa and enjoy some, you know, shaded cover along your way. So that's an important thing that we thought about as we designed this. We've also identified our major signage for the site on this site plan, and we've also shown a trolley stop location. So we've had, very preliminary discussions with a trolley owner here in town. I don't believe they're in operation anymore, but maybe Acha, you could speak more to that. But that's also part of our idea of how to kind of bring people from Main Street to the property is let's integrate some sort of trolley usage to entice people to maybe not walk from downtown, but take the trolley. Maybe you don't have to drive your car. You can get in the trolley and come enjoy your time at the development and stay there. So I'm going to go to the next page. The next page is going to show loading facility areas for each of the uses. So we touched on trash a little bit earlier with another development. We tried to identify, and this was a request from staff to show where each of these facilities would have loading occurring. So, all of these areas are kind of tucked away or would be, constructed in a way where it's minimal impact to the outside world. These are commercial buildings, so there will be screening and there will be operations involved of getting rid of trash or loading in goods. So this is going to show you where that's going to take place for each of the buildings. Okay, so I'm going to hand it off to our architecture team, Merriman Anderson. This is a nice rendering shot from 290 and 87 of the whole site. But if we go to the next slide, we'll go ahead and show the building concept sheet. And from there, it'll be renderings, and then I'll come see you in a little bit again. Thank you.
Good evening, you all. Thanks for spending your evening with us. We're appreciated to be here and excited to be a part of this project and part of your township and be here with you all tonight to show you kind of our vision and our ideas and hopefully our integration into what we consider a very unique and beautiful area of Texas. I'm going to go through these renderings. We can kind of go through them at a decent pace here, but I think the idea is sense of place. It's as much about the architecture as it's the space in between. Merriman Anderson Architects, we have, over the years, we pride ourselves on creating place. And creating place really comes down to some of the stuff that we don't want to talk about or what you all love to talk about. And that's trash loading, all the yucky stuff that goes behind the scenes, right? And so, our job is to get all that behind the scenes, operate this place smoothly and nicely, and create a really nice, unique experience that you can walk through this campus-like feel from your hotel to the residential building, all the way down to the retail, and have a very seamless, curated experience that allows yourself to feel safe, inviting, and just a very enjoyable experience. From the architecture standpoint, we've really strived to create undulation in the facades, unique materialities that are, well, not unique, actually more non-unique, as they're materials that are based more in Fredericksburg area and things that you would find on the Main Street areas. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We're trying to come in and find a continuity between the articulation of what's going on in the downtown and find its way into these retail buildings, the hotels, and the residential buildings, as well as the condos. In doing that, we have some really great opportunities here. We have opportunities to create outdoor plazas, as Nick talked about, where we really can come out and we can have music coming in, we have bands playing, we can set up tents, we can do all kinds of events, and we can do it off the public access, off the public streets. So we really have a safe environment that families and people can come to and really have a great event space. We also have, in the same sense, and I'll say, some of this stuff is placeholders. These are conceptual renderings, so we're kind of, as we're going through this, that's probably not going to be the exact share that's sitting out there. The idea is that you can really see the sense of the place. So, example, in this image, you're really seeing a variation in materiality, but you're also seeing a variation in window type. So not everything looks the same. There's going to be wood windows here. There's going to be metal. There's going to be articulation on how we do ceiling fans, how we do the stucco facades, how we do brick, how we do the stone facades. So there's going to be a lot of undulation things. It's going to be complicated buildings. But the idea is that we come away with an honest and true building that feels hospitable and, again, part of the Fredericksburg landscape. Switch to the next one if you like. So this is the retail buildings you're seeing right now. Again, you're seeing some that have one-story elements, some that are two. Again, just like on your Main Street district, there's the facade. It's been curated over time, and we're not trying to exactly recreate that. We understand we can't exactly recreate that, but what we are doing is we're trying to take some of the elements of what makes Main Street successful and what makes it's not just a bunch of flat facades here. We're looking at how we break these up with canopies, how we break it up with our mutton details, and how we do our different cornice details. So we're really trying to draw interest to the facades, but again, they become a backdrop to the public spaces that the building set in between. Switch to the next. You're seeing a larger kind of a bird's eye view here looking down onto the plaza. This is the retail plaza. So again, you're seeing elements of outdoor patios conceptually, and then outdoor patios on roof terraces as well. And then just the entire connection between the beauty of this development too is that we're going to have retail facing retail. There's no street in between. So you're going to be able to get ice cream at one place, go shop for clothes at the other place, and whatever it ends up being. But there's a nice ability to really transverse the site without the fear of going across the sidewalk or across the street. And so this is kind of steadying out a little bit on the corner. This is more towards the old gas station. So you're looking kind of back into that plaza area, again, at one of the retail pieces and the covered walkway there. We switched over and we're kind of gone up the road and we're at the residential building. So again, trying to be honest with materials, brick is brick and stone is stone. But we're finding, again, simple and clean ways to do articulation of detail that brings interest to the facades, and breaks the scale down of the buildings as well. The site's beautiful. I mean, I'm sure you all know it very well, but I mean, we have an amazing opportunity as this site rips back and it goes into the floodplain. It's a wonderful opportunity. I mean, most people look at the floodplain and it's like, oh my gosh, we don't want to have BC Partners has embraced it. We have a great opportunity to allow the residential, the hotel, and as well as public access back into that. One thing you'll find on the site plan is there's no big fences around anything. Everything's meant to be transverse by everyone. So as a pedestrian or as anyone from Fredericksburg, you're supposed to be able to come out here and walk down the sidewalks, get down to the creek, be able to experience that, and then find your way back up into the retail components or stay a night in the hotel. Another shot of the residential building. Again, paying careful attention to portion and scale and breaking down the scale of the building. Looking back at the hotel concept. So again, you'll see a lot of similarities here. Again, playing with muted materials in terms of colors, lots of stones, paving patterns and things of that nature. And then really just, again, the idea is that break the facades up, break the scale down, and create really usable space. It creates really visual interest for someone coming in. Another shot of the front entry of the hotel. This is kind of the drive as you're approaching in from the hotel. So this, for orientation purposes, the spa would be on your left-hand side, and the ballroom would be on your right-hand side. So you're kind of coming asymmetrical. So, a lot of the buildings are not sitting right on the face of the interstate. They're purposefully set in. A lot of them are in order to capitalize on views, capitalize on the landscape, and work with the topography that we have in place and try to utilize that as much as possible. So this is a image of a concept of the event or the ballroom space. Again, conceptual, just again, barn-like structure, heavy, supposed to be big volumes in there. Really supposed to just kind of pay homage again to not a large box, but a nice breaking roof line that allows for clear story at the top, and then a wonderful opportunity to open up to create vistas out into the flood zone and all the trees and the creek. And another shot, that's the entry on the left-hand side. Hotel would be to the left, and residential would be to the right. We're looking at the spa building here. So conceptually, we're looking at this as this is sitting right across the street from the hotel. So it really creates that street frontage. So a lot of the buildings talk to each other on the streetscape. As Nick said, we think of this as a European streetscape. This is not supposed to be people going 45 miles an hour down it. It's supposed to be a slow road, and paving wise and rolled curbs and things of that nature, and really creating this more European style feel that really promotes walkability within the district. We get really excited about this, so we probably overshot the renderings, and I apologize, but it's like we start shooting these because we get so excited about the architecture and the design and what the spaces feel like. We probably shoot it too much, but another shot of the spot entry. looking at the condo building here, so this would be facing, this would be, I guess, page south, plan south. So kind of that internalized area that sets between that and the creek bed or our neighbors to the south. So again, it's very similar in concept, different articulation, different window sets, but still, again, we're breaking down scale with different roof lines, different parapet details, as well as creating colonnades, balcony opportunities, and again, just engagement of the facades on multiple senses. Coming out of the retail, looking back at the condo and one of the entry points, there's multiple points of entry from the pedestrian standpoint into the retail plaza, but just as important as entering it is how do you address it as you exit it. So having hard stops with buildings that have something to go to and have interest points as you come through the plaza and come into the lower slow street and then hitting the condo building, the spa area, and the hotel. Another shot, a little more New Orleans in flavor, but again, opportunity to create some really beautiful balconies and have some really great opportunity for residents to get out and set out and watch hear the live music going on in the plaza. And that is the rendering part of the section. I will turn it back over to Nick here. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, I brought my binder up here this time. So, John mentioned maybe we overshot on the renderings, and maybe we did, but I think one of the things that we've been keeping in mind this whole time is trying to be as transparent as possible about what we're going to try to deliver here. And pictures really help paint a picture for a lot of people, right? You have to see it from the ground to actually understand what the goal is. So I'm happy that everyone got to try and take that in and understand what our goal is here. If you'd go to the next slide, please. Okay, so some additional considerations that we thought about that we wanted to mention, that some of these may be in the staff recommendations as well. But there's an existing annexation agreement for the property. We've gone through the process with the city attorney and our legal counsel to try and amend those documents in parallel with amending the PUD to make sure that legally everything aligns. And beyond that, I won't say any more because it may not be accurate, but we understand that's a requirement, and we've attempted to do so, and I think we're in a good place right now with that process. So that is something that's also been happening in parallel. I already touched on the shared parking analysis and the traffic impact analysis. The shared parking analysis, I believe you were provided a copy of the draft. Our plan is, upon approval, we would have that shared parking analysis finalized with all the final counts. But again, today we're requesting no less than 900 spaces beyond this site because we need at least 900 spaces. We could go lower than that based on the shared parking analysis, but we felt that 900 was the number that we would like to meet. And, there's necessity for additional spots. We can explore that. Comprehensive plan consideration. So we've had a lot of discussions with city staff. There are a lot of references back to the comprehensive plan. I could point out, 4 specific spots within the comprehensive plan that we tried to ensure that we keyed in on, and use that as, inspiration to when we're making adjustments to the site plan and, culmination of all this information to come to you today. We took that into consideration as well. So, this is a PUD. There's a high density residential kind of mixed in here as well. There's a mixed use component mixed into here as well. So we're referencing multiple spaces of that comprehensive plan and the city ordinances. So I know y'all know that, but we looked at that as well deeply. And then we also understand that, after planning and zoning, hopefully all goes well, and after city council, hopefully all goes well. There's things like civil construction plans that have to be submitted and approved. The landscape and screening plan, which we've outlined in our zoning notes. We do have some references to landscape and screening in our zoning notes, but that still has to be final approved. Night sky compliance for exterior lighting. This is a big development. So lighting from, from 290 and 87 is important. We get that. And we agree that, yes, we will be in compliance with the night sky ordinance. And then the addressing plan, that would also be something that would have to be done. So we're aware of many things that still need to be addressed and need to be finalized, but at least wanted to voice that in front of you today so we're thinking about that kind of stuff as well. A couple other points that aren't on here, but I would like to specifically mention. I talk about transparency again. When I came up here, we met with over 10 people in the surrounding area, business owners and neighbors. Transparency is huge, right? We're coming and we're looking at a 22-acre piece of property. We wanted to have those conversations with people and get feedback and make sure that, at least we're trying to make some sort of effort, right? We're not making zero effort to go out to the community and speak with them. We are making some efforts to do that, and we've done that. So I wanted to point to that. And then the screening and landscape, which we've already talked about. I'm trying to see if I missed anything else for this slide. I think we're good for that one. Let's move on to the next one, please. Okay, so staff recommendations. I might be stealing some of Shelby's thunder here, but I at least wanted to go through each of them and kind of give you an understanding of, we got to review the memo. We could at least, voice our thoughts here before staff takes over, and then we can start our discussion from there. But the first one being about vertical mixed uses. While we certainly understand that, residential over retail would be a nice touch, we've kind of approached this as a horizontal mixed use walking campus. Part of our leasing strategy may not bode well for residential over the retail, only because it may not be a convenience center or corner store that folks would be only walking down from their unit to grab something quickly and then walk back up to their unit. That's just, we don't necessarily see it that way at this point in time. But that's one thing where we say, okay, maybe it makes more sense to keep the residential with the residential and the retail with the retail. And then also the parking. If we were to put the residential above the retail, it may take some efforts to put the additional parking necessary over by the retail, and that would take some serious reconfigurations, we think. So for right now, we feel comfortable with what we're presenting you today, which is each of the uses kind of being dedicated to their own locations. But we can talk about that further. The residential density piece, I believe we're good there. The 18 units per acre. Right now we're at 15.88 based on the 303 residential units we are requesting, which would comprise of 258 apartments and 45 condos. So there's a calculation sheet after this that we can talk through in more detail if needed, but I think on that one we're in agreement with the staff there. Low impact design throughout the campus. That's at the front of our mind as well. We actually came to City Council last year through an RFP process for the City of Fredericksburg, but that's kind of unrelated. But during that City Council meeting, it was brought to our attention and really to the community's attention that, hey, there's some issues with, water usage. And we got to hear that and take that feedback very early on. Brian, our civil engineer, who's also our landscape architecture company, he'll be able to talk a little bit more about low impact design on the landscape front, but we don't plan on having any water fountains that serve no purpose unless they were to use some sort of low impact design consideration. So I think we're in alignment there as well. References to administrative approval in the PUD exhibits. Based on the latest submission to city staff from July 19th, I believe we've removed all administrative approval language. So I believe we're in alignment there as well. Preservation of more open space around the Sunday house. We do agree with that comment. We've talked internally since the memo was issued. If we were to look back at the site plan, the spa and the tennis courts and the pickleball courts could probably use a push a little bit to the west to free up some space around that Sunday home and create a little bit more of an open space feel. So we're in agreement there, and I think we're aligned. Updated traffic impact analysis. We agree that will take place. Coordination with TxDOT regarding access points on 290 and 87, and then also working with TxDOT on pedestrian safety enhancements. We're in full alignment there as well. Coordination with Alamo Area Council of Governments, the ARC program. I think this is kind of right up our alleyway with, we mentioned the trolley stop, trying to bring people into the development and maybe working with some transportation group. We saw this recommendation come through on Friday. This is a great point by staff. We should look at other opportunities to work with other transportation groups to how do we get people to the development. We're open to that as well, so we're aligned there. Signage consistent with the sign ordinance. I believe we're consistent through our permitted signs exhibit for the PUD. So that's also part of the package that was submitted to city staff on July 19th. So we should be aligned there as well. And then council approval of proposed development agreement. That's been done in parallel. But the annexation amendment is how we are taking that, is taking place in parallel with this PUD amendment. So we believe we're aligned with that staff recommendation as well. So with that being said, you can switch to the next slide, and I'll take you through a couple of key points on the calculations for the site. And then I'll just I think after that we'll be done. I'm going to hand it over to Melissa. She's going to do the brand presentation, and then I'm sure y'all have a lot of questions, so we can get into that as well. A couple of things I want to highlight on the left-hand side. So Seven Hills was the previously proposed development here, which the existing PUD was for. Our PUD amendment is for the Muse, which is on the right-hand side there. A couple of things that we followed staff recommendation on prior to this memo that you see today. We reduced our max building coverage down to 65%. I believe we reduced it 5%, but we were fully aligned with that as well. We said, yes, let's bring that down. Max impervious coverage, we brought that down from 80% previously down to 75%, so we're aligned there as well. You can see the 15.88 units per acre, which is below the 18 for the high density residential, and then multifamily units. So originally we came to city staff and said, hey, we believe there's a need for a maximum of 280 apartments. City staff came back with some feedback, and we settled on 258. So we feel like we're aligned in a lot of areas. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to let Melissa do the brand presentation and then give it to staff. So thank you.
Hello. This is the fun part. So I'm Melissa Gerhold, Marketing Manager for DC Partners. Nick asked me to come to show you the marketing component of the development, just to give you a holistic view of what the development's going to look like. So I think many of y'all have maybe heard about the Muse and the name. And so I wanted to give you a little background of why we chose that. So DC Partners' mission statement is centered around building and fostering communities. And so when we began the naming process, we really wanted that to be a component in whatever we chose. And so we wanted to be intentional and purposeful in the name we chose, because just like you and I have a name, there's a reason our parents gave it to us. So lots of ideas were thrown around, from peaches and wine and lavender fields, and the Cleve Hopper House. That's a mouthful. And then we just kept coming back to John Usbach, right? So he was obviously significant in the founding of Fredericksburg, but more than that, he was really dedicated to bring harmony between two very different people groups. And so that stuck with us. It made a lasting impact, right? Because he was the foundation and the reason why you have the community that you have today. And so in his namesake, and the community that he was so dedicated to building, we landed on the Muse, a shortened version of his name. And it's also a nod to the traditional Muse, so M-U-S-E, as in, what is your muse? What is your inspiration? Is it family? Is it wine? Is it friends? Is it dining? So it's really, find it all in Fredericksburg and find it at the Muse is kind of our tagline. And you can go on. This is a mood board, so it's kind of a source of inspiration, a spring pad to launch you into branding. So you see a lot of vibrant colors, friends, family, just a place to kind of springboard and go on. So you can keep going. This is the logo. And so you'll see kind of some European, German roots woven into the typography here, and those wrought iron-esque M's make a really nice stamp for us. So keep going. This is the color inspiration, so we wanted to play on the natural landscape, the area around. You see a lot of, notice you'll have almost those tiles right there out front. That was so cool. You can keep going. And so we landed, these are our brand colors: terracotta, clay, sage, stone, warm gray, and black. And this is the typography kind of example. If you want to show them pretty pictures, just to give you an idea, sense, again, back to what John was saying, just give you a sense of what you can see in the future. So thank you. And lastly, this is our voice. So just like you and I have a voice and we have little sayings that we say, the Muse has a voice, and it's warm and friendly, it's elegant, social, historically inspired, luxurious, familiar, colloquial, well-read, current, memorable, balanced, and sentimental. So, you know, we really want to build, like John was saying, a sense of place, and it's a place for all people. All are welcome. And so that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Right. Anna, are you going to make the staff presentation? All right.
Thank you all to the DC Partners team. We have been working for several months now, back and forth from Houston. So thank you for the multiple trips to town to better understand the west end of Fredericksburg. And this project's kind of been a long time coming. Obviously, we thought a few years ago it was going to be a different hotel conference center. And so when staff first started reviewing this project, initially we're like, okay, well, show us how it's different, right? That seems like the easy place to start. And it was pretty clear that it's significantly different. It is a hotel and conference center and retail. But the new would be all of the residential, the condominium, and the multifamily, and the spa. So initially we asked for, like, let's see the red line, let's see how it's different. But it's really, it's a lot more. Architecturally, entry corridor, I mean, you guys knocked it out of the park. It's beautiful material-wise, aesthetically pleasing, a great looking project, no doubt. So I think for this board, for this planner, for this person that designated the Klingelhofer House 4 years ago, how is it going to fit, right? What's the impact going to be? And how do we get it right? This is the largest project in Fredericksburg. So how do we ensure we get it right? So looking at the comprehensive plan, the comp plan says this is the why, this is the intersection of Highway 290 and 87, and this is where you should have mixed use. That's what the 2006 comp plan says, and that's obviously what they're doing. And mixed use means certain things, right? It means a higher density. It means you've got to handle parking. And I'll say this compared to the previous design. The previous design was all surface parking. Seven Hills had a lot of just surface parking. So they've taken a different approach, which, you know, you can appreciate. But that means the density is hand in hand with that, right? To get a wrapped garage, a parking garage that you don't see, means that it's wrapped by pretty dense residential, and that just happens to be at the corner of the entrance to a neighborhood, and truly our entry corridor as you're coming down Highway 87. This will be the new welcome sign to Fredericksburg, if you will. So again, the comp plan calls for a commercial center and mixed use. And this would be the first of a true mixed use. You know, a few years ago we created the mixed use district because we've not seen that. We've called for it in the comp plan as a land use, but we didn't have a zoning district called mixed use. So Brian and I worked on that a few years ago, but it still hasn't been utilized. We keep going back to these PUDs. And so why you're looking at this today is because Seven Hills had a PUD, and a PUD is very specific to development. So essentially what they're coming here today is a new PUD. I mean, we've got a red line version and we can tell you the differences, but ultimately this is a brand new standalone project. And mixed use. The development does encircle the Klingelhofer home, which is a traditional limestone German farmhouse that represents what was a very common site around town and on the outskirts of town. So Fredericksburg and Gillespie County were settled by families that had both a townhouse, a Sunday house, and a farmhouse. And the Klingelhofer house will be retained, but the land will be developed. And as proposed, there would be approximately 600 full-time residents, 300 overnight guests, and dozens of employees. I just pulled up the latest census data from 2020, and it said our estimate is 10,875 full-time residents. The site in question was previously annexed and approved for a PUD for the Seven Hills Conference Center. And recently, the Muse has replatted into a single lot, and that has received a preliminary approval. The Klingelhofer House is a designated landmark, and their proposal shows a landmark overlay that would follow the previous property line. So some of the major considerations for you this evening will be the heights, 4 stories. In the previous proposal, Seven Hills did get 48 feet approved in their PUD. However, I think there are 1, maybe 2 buildings that were going to reach that max height. Of course, most zoning districts only allow a height of 38 feet. So this will be an anomaly in town. Parking, the requirements are 1,378 spaces, and they are proposing to provide 900. And again, staff supports the idea of mixed use and reducing parking requirements by having true mixed use where people will reduce their vehicular trips and having a destination that people that are already on Main Street would want to either walk to or ride a bike to or take a trolley to if it weren't one were to exist. Of course, we've got the standard requirements, utilities, that was part of the annexation agreement, detention, stormwater, all being reviewed by engineering, landscaping, and screening. Again, design-wise, it's a very attractive design, so no concerns with the design itself. And then the density. This being a little bit different than what we usually see, right? Usually we see a tract of land that's being developed solely for residential, so it's really easy to calculate. So I do want them to go through their calculations on how they got to what is the base area that they're using for the density calculations. I ran a few different numbers and came out with some slightly different, so we can go through that in more depth. And so he already showed the recommendations that we'd come up with. Again, the vertical mixed use, that's what makes downtown successful, right? That's the old style building pattern. Retail on the bottom, residential above, or office above, but a true mix of use. Yeah, and the density, again, the comp plan says no more than 18 units per acre. The low impact design, lovely renderings, lots of green grass, which right now just seems like a thing of the past. So don't know that anything other than low impact would be smart moving forward. And the preservation of more space around the Klingelhofer house. Right now, this is sentimental Anna, the historian, but when you leave town right now, the Klingelhofer house is the edge of town, and that open field and the windmill and the tank, and that's Fredericksburg, right? So whatever happens to this project or this property will impact that, no doubt. But it would be ideal to see that as the center of it, as the heart of it. And so far, I've not seen a true use for the Klingelhoefer or feel like it's really the heart of the project, which it is. I mean, that's the landmark. It's the asset on the property that they're starting with. Obviously, TxDOT coordination will be important as far as access points and decel lanes. And the Y itself is obviously problematic, vehicular, pedestrian wise. And with a project of this size, we can only assume it's going to have an impact on the rest of West Main Street. So we were early on put the developers in contact with some of the West Main property owners because they have a lot at stake at this as well. But also a chance to build off of that momentum from whatever happens. So coordination with TxDOT will be important to enhance the Y. Right now they are showing to keep the old gas station, which the previous development was not. So I think that's a wise thing to keep. It's a landmark in that it marks the land and everybody knows if you say the gas station at the Y, but it's not designated by the city as a local landmark. Coordination with ACOG on transportation, and this has been what I've been preaching to any developer that comes to town and proposing any type of employment. How are your people going to get to and from work? I think it's going to be a huge question going forward. Even as we build more apartment complexes around town, we have to assume that not everybody's going to have a car. So we've got to have more options to get around. Signage. I'm not a fan of putting signage in PUDs. I'd like that to be a standalone come later item, just because it can change so much based on the actual buildings. And I think the way it's written, it probably meets it, but then there's just images that don't seem to meet it. So we'll do a more thorough review of the signage package. And then, yes, the agreement itself will have to be amended. The city council will go through that document with the attorneys. The other thing I wanted to note, again, the size and scope of the development really warrants a discussion on the creation of a tax increment reinvestment zone, a TERS district. Brought this up before, not necessarily the purview of this body, but a larger question as we think about the redevelopment of West Main and some enhancements that West Main needs, especially anything to enhance the pedestrian experience. The difference between West Main and the Golden Blocks is the protection of pedestrians. We have balconies and canopies on the Golden Blocks, and then as you get west of Milam, it's a totally different walking experience. So a tax increment reinvestment zone can help with public improvements, sidewalks, public art, restrooms, transportation, lots of things can be covered in that district. So I just think that's a conversation we as a community need to be having. And that's it. So we can dig into the details or however you want to take it.
All right. Thank you very much. Very good report. All right. I would like to entertain a motion then to open the public hearing.
Make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Motion by Jim, second by Polly. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak about this application? Got a quiet crowd tonight.
All right, we'll go out of public hearing back into regular session.
All right. Motion by Tim, second by Polly. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Do we have any comments or questions from the commission?
Yes.
All right, Polly? Okay.
When I saw this, and I saw the almost doubling of the actual building square footage on this property, and I saw the initial renderings, I really had a hard time wrapping my head around this in terms of trying to get in my head spatially, how big is this? So I went online And I looked up a couple places, and my own reference is the Pearl in San Antonio. The Pearl in San Antonio is 500,000 square feet on 26 acres. This is 309,000 square feet on 22 acres. It's 3/5 the size of the Pearl. This is humongous for our town. This is massive. I mean, I think it is a total understatement to say that this is the biggest development that has so far been done in our city. This is a massively transformational proposal. It will impact traffic patterns. It will impact where housing gets developed. It will impact watersheds. It will impact, I mean, this thing is so hugely impactful. Great for a city like San Antonio that's millions of people in it and can absorb the economic shock of it either going really well or going really poorly. For me, this is too much of a potential economic shock to our community. It's too big. It's too much. It doesn't fit. It's too massive for our town. I mean, you think about that. How many blocks of Main Street would we have to count to absorb the amount of square footage that's being proposed? I mean, when I had to go all the way to San Antonio to come up with a frame of reference to figure out how big this thing really was, to me, that's a problem. I can't see parking 300,000 square feet in our community in one roll of the dice, one go. As far as the mixed use goes, I know y'all asked for the single plat. I'm one of the people who voted against it because I didn't see the point. I really don't see the point now that I see the site. You basically have a multifamily section, you have a hotel section, you have a condo section, and you have a retail section. To me, this is not true multi-use. Multi-use is where it's all mixed in, like our old part of our city, where the uses just mix and match, and they are very, I don't want to say organic. Yeah, this looks very corporate. It looks very homogeneous. Yes, you did a great job, and it looks really pretty, but it looks great for Austin. It looks great for San Antonio. This does not look anything like what our town is like.
It has elements.
It has elements, but it is not enough. I agree with you about the Klingelheffer house. I wish somebody would have taken that and made that piece the grand entrance to whatever this would be and make that the focus, that it started at a historic piece of property that was jumping off. You're not alone. The previous developers basically totally ignored it, just sat it there and threw some Sunday houses around it and called it good. But this doesn't really pay any homage to that historic piece of property that sits there. And
fails at the Albert with the stone house on Austin.
Say that again?
That whole concept we're talking about fails with the stone house that's on Austin with the Albert.
Yes, wrapped around it. But I'm just saying this is just, I mean, we've approved some things that have been scary. This one just, I'm sorry, Mayor, this one just scares the crap out of me.
Thank you, Polly. Anyone else have any comments?
Yeah, I have a few. I will take off on some of Polly's subjects, but I have a list. First of all, this is not us. And if you don't understand what this is not us, you don't understand anything about Fredericksburg, Texas, because this project is not anywhere close to what we are or what we want to be, in my opinion. We are a unique community, unlike you will find any place else in lots of places. We are told by people that come here that part of the reason they like to come here is because of the way we are. We are not like other places. We are a small town. We want to be a small town. We want to stay a small town. The traffic volume that you're talking about generating for your project, the local people will say, and we've all heard it, I don't want to go to town on the weekend. I don't want to go to town on the weekends. There's too much traffic. Well, okay. So now you are down on the west end of Main Street. Where are all of your customers going to come from? 95% of them are going to come from San Antonio, Dallas, Austin, and Houston. And how are they going to get to your development? Right down the middle of Main Street. That is not going to work. The intersection that Polly talked about a while ago, if you're going to do it at all, the intersection needs to be completely redone. The traffic jam that is in that intersection at 7:45 in the morning on a weekday and not necessarily a school day backs traffic up for about 150 yards behind it to make the transition from 87 North to 290 in Main Street. It is at a log jam right now with what we have out there. This project might have had some relief had the city of Fredericksburg completed a portion of their transportation program that ultimately will bring people from Highway 290 east to all the way to Highway 290 west via Tyberdale Road and Kerr Road, and it will come across and ultimately tie into close to where your project is. That project with City Hall is probably somewhere down the road 4 or 5 years if we started today. The scale of the project, I probably missed one, or maybe she decided to let me have it. I don't know. When I saw this, it reminds me of La Cantera in San Antonio. Exactly the same thing. You drive by and it is just buildings, buildings, buildings. It looks like a little city. It's like a little city. Coming in from 87, do we want our entry corridor to welcome you to Fredericksburg, Texas with a parking garage and something that looks like a little city in and of itself? I don't think so. The Convention and Visitors Bureau has been talking about for years, and we've been talking about weekday business in our community with a conference center. To date, it has not happened. My question is, do we really need it or do we really want it? There are business people in this community who tell you that they have got to have midweek, like Wednesdays and Thursdays, to catch up from the weekend before and get ready for the weekend after. So they're not interested in conference center. They don't think it's necessary. Somebody has said in the past, well, maybe these folks can just go outside the city limits and build this thing. And that's very true. You can't. We have no control over what happens beyond our borders and our city limits, but this is in our city limits, and it is our responsibility to take care of our residents, and this doesn't do it. There are those that say we're going to have an extreme loss of sales tax, and our property values will increase, and the burden on our city services will be enhanced. It will have a bigger burden on our infrastructure. So, is it worth the reputation of this community that's built over 175 years to build something like this in a community that has prided itself on being unique and drawing people from all over the world who find us to be very attractive with the way we are? Not like San Antonio, not like Austin, not like any place else you can find. We just, not too long ago, lost control of our hospital to an outside interest. And that is, in some cases and in some portions, all about the money. If we do this, like Ms. Rickard said, our community will never be the same. Our responsibility as this board and the city council's responsibility is to protect the residents of our community. If we do this project, we sell out our community. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Tim. Anyone else?
I would like to add too that with an ambitious project like this, you can do all the traffic analysis in the world, and it's not going to cover the construction of this project, which will go on for every bit of 24 months. And that's if everything falls into place. So you're looking at 2 years to develop this thing, and imagine all the trucks and concrete pumps and everything coming to this site to develop it. You think traffic's bad on the 87 and 290 right now? You wait till construction vehicles show up and materials, and that's going to be a nightmare. That's pretty ambitious. And I know what traffic is like there because I live in that end of town. I see it daily, and it is high speed. People are looking at getting out of town, so they go full throttle by the time they even get to the post office. You know, it's been a nightmare doing stuff in town. There's a lot of bets out there about how fast some of these projects have been going, like the Albert. And there's no end in sight on that one. And it's much smaller than this. And it's huge. I'm concerned, my first impressions of the rendering is mostly 3 stories. Other than Chase Bank, I can't think of too many things that are 3 stories. Courthouse, but it's got a basement. You know, I just don't see 3 stories happening here.
But they're asking for 4 stories, Steve.
Well, I know.
48 feet. And by our definition, that is 4 stories, is it not?
We have a parking problem in town. We've got an affordable housing problem. We're exacerbating that issue just because you think of the staff it's going to take to run these things. I don't know. I think it's just a little over the top.
Steve, anyone else?
Let's get back to the business at hand, and we all have our opinions, definite ways about that. But our task, as far as I've always done, as long as I've been on this committee, is to look at our zones, look at our zoning regulations in comparison, and compare them to projects. The number one that really sticks out the most is the height. We have not approved over 30 feet as long as I've been on this committee. This commission. So I don't see we would start that now in an entry corridor. Number 2 is parking. It's my particular hot button item. If our minimum requirements is 1,378 spaces, 900 just not good. So I do understand the whole theory of mixed use. I was very much involved in putting that together, and I do understand the fact that it's supposedly going to reduce vehicle traffic, but this is basically a big project, and it has a lot of moving parts. And if you just, in my mind, I just added up beds. As far as I'm concerned, in this day and age, a bed equals a parking space. So that's the second thing. That's the second thing we look at as from our perspective of commission. The scale is off. I mean, just looking at it, the use of the project, the use of the acreages is off, in my opinion. It's got too much crammed in a small space. And maybe y'all could grow into all of that. I would like to see this project focus back on what it was originally planned for that space, and it is a meeting space, a hotel, a conference center. And then we can maybe look at possibly adding all that. I don't know if it's all needed. Apparently it's needed for the economic impact of this thing. And then of course, the other one is staffing, number one, because most of us in town who have staff and have large amount of staff who are paying crazy premiums to keep them. And a project like this is just going to be a staff, thievery all in one little fell swoop. Since the grand opening comes, we lose 50% of our staff. And then the second thing is this staff housing, and then probably the next one is I was laughing like everybody else at the greenery shown in the renderings. We don't have any green in this town, so water is going to be an important issue, and I'd like to see for sure, or require for sure, rainwater collection, possibly even recycling of gray water, something that even facilitates something somewhere near that. So that's issues I'm.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else?
It's your business. It is my business. And by the same token, to the young lady who did the marketing presentation, outstanding job. Mood board and color inspirations, et cetera, stuff I work in for an agency, so I appreciated that this evening. Gentlemen, you've heard this evening a lot of compassion discussion. Majority of folks here giving you their views, more compassion, whereas Mr. Grove started. As I began reviewing this and looked at it, many of us here have sat for years on this commission, and we've been charged with trying to make sure we're guiding the direction of this community where we're going. I realize there are those who in economic development and tourism that are anxious and excited about a development of this magnitude, and that it can bring them a new market share that they may have not had before and open up potential businesses they've not had before. However, the impact, as Ms. Rickard alluded to at the very start, is monumental to this community. And there are so many other developments that we have approved, and we've asked staff for a map of those developments just to give you an idea so that you can see what you are proposing, while significant in size and definitely expense. There's already more housing, more multi-use, et cetera, already being built here. We simply do not have the infrastructure as a community to grow at the rate that we are looking at right now, and that we as this commission have approved over the past 2 to 3 years. But I'll come back to the simple numbers. I have never, in good faith, approved a project in this community that we have oversaw as Planning and Zoning Commission that is short on parking. Parking has been an issue in this community as long as I have been involved in the travel industry here locally and beyond. To be short hundreds of spaces that you're acquiring, already knowing while looking at a TxDOT travel map, you are currently already looking at 8,349 vehicles traversing just the Highway 87 intersection on a daily basis, and 5,775, and these are TxDOT numbers I'm looking at right here. To add an additional 900 spaces, which we agree are low, can never approve it just on the parking spaces alone. While that may seem like a small part of it, we do not have the space to absorb additional parking anywhere in this community. It's one of our biggest challenges. Things like water that Mr. Duro brings up and all that, purview, perhaps that's not ours. But to be good stewards of our community, we must now start looking at things like that. And while it is a phenomenal project, the size, scale, and magnitude that would impact this community are too great for what we're looking at right now, even on just based on the transportation of your guests, your residents, by foot to downtown. Have you walked from, say, Mr. Krenwigge's old car dealership at the intersection of South Milam and West Main to that? I suggest you walk it and see how it's going to be for your guests who have perhaps had a couple of beverages at condos or crossroads, and how they're going to transfer themselves back to your property in the evenings.
Stumbling.
I do not know what information has been communicated to you and what the vibe is probably not the correct word, but what vibe you received from city staff along this development. But I think as you've heard so far from this commission, whether it be passion or numerically based, I'm not sensing an appetite at this point. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Darrell.
I got one other added thing. I want to say one of the most, to me, resounding benefits of this project is that, I'm sorry,
One of the resounding benefits that I view of this project, and we've talked about it, is I am a retailer and I have businesses on Main, and it would be kind of nice to take the feast on Thursday, Friday, Saturday and distribute it amongst Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's an ideal goal for all of us. And then the second thing is a real push right now, and I see it reminded me because I see Mayor Hoover stretching his legs over there, and that is the best way to get STRs and these little mini hotels out of our neighborhoods is to give them other sexy options, and the sexy options aren't the one next to Mamacita's. And this definitely meets that bill. My question for the developers is, can you make this economically feasible, not being 48 foot tall? So staying with our 30 foot. I mean, I'm really amazed it came to this because our 30 foot is kind of
pushing it anyway.
well, it's pushing it anyway, but it's so well published that that's been our limit for so long. We've sent great projects backpacking because of that scale in our community. That's it.
So Jim, I'll just add some context to that. When we approved Seven Hills, their hotel was on that slope. And they were one down and three up, right?
Correct.
And so the reason they got the 48-foot exception for that, what we thought was just that building. I didn't realize we were approving it for the entire PUD, to be honest. The reason they got the 48 feet was because the conflict on the measurement, and they were measuring from at ground level down in the floodplain in the bottom, that it was going to end up being 48 feet on the one side, but up at grade, it was only going to be 30 something. It was, I don't even think it was the full 38 feet.
That's correct.
And that was the only reason we granted that exception when we approved that particular PUD. And our expectation was it was only for that one building. If we had known we were approving 48 feet across the entire PUD, I don't think we would have approved. We didn't realize that that's what was going to be done.
Right. Mr. Musselman, you had a comment?
I would like to remind the commission what we do here gets set in stone and becomes a precedent for development from hereafter. We broke precedent with the Albert and approved 3 stories downtown. And now every developer that comes to Fredericksburg says, I want to build a 3-story. Every development that has come in has said, and I understand, I think we all understand why. It's because land costs a lot, and if you can put more square footage on a piece of property, you can reduce your square footage cost. But I would caution, this is something that we have to think about. If we approve 4 stories, then that becomes the new standard. And it's going to be very, very hard to say to someone else, you can't have 4 stories. I'm also very concerned about the parking. We have never had enough parking. No matter where. The developers made the statement that we want people to come here and gather, like on Main Street. Well, we don't have public transportation. And we might think that there is going to be a trolley. Trolleys come, trolleys go. If they don't make enough money, they go away. So I'm sure that in their marketing plan, they will find a way to market people, come here to our project. Well, they're going to need parking. Okay. And that leads to, other issues that we have in the community here. When we look at projects and we're looking at the number of vehicles that are attached to a project, I think that, this, we need to be realistic about how many vehicles are attached to an apartment. Okay, this is not the 1950s where Harriet takes Ozzy to work and then Harriet's got the car the rest of the day. Ozzy's got a car and Harriet's got a car, and they need 2 parking spaces, even if they're living in a 1-bedroom apartment. Okay, and I think we all know that we have many people that live in this community that live in houses that have lots and lots of people that are living in houses because of the cost of housing. So it's very rare that we are going to have less vehicles in town. So that's something I think the development department needs to take into consideration, and maybe we need to take into consideration in the comp plan is that you got a bed, 1 bedroom is 2 cars, 2 bedrooms 3 cars, 3 bedrooms 4 cars. Parking's not going away.
It will be addressed in this conference.
Yes. Okay. So that's all I have.
Anyone else have other comments?
I have some comments.
All right.
So I'll echo a lot of what everybody else said too. My big 3, the height thing of 48 feet for me is a no-go. Anything of that size is just too large. When I first looked at this, the big thing was the parking. And I'll reiterate how many numbers. This is 478 parking spots short. That's huge. We have a huge shortage of parking in our city. That is a massive number of spots. I mean, you count all the ones we have on Main Street and compare that. That's a huge difference.
More than the garage.
Yeah, huge difference. There's a lot of other things, but the other big thing was the workforce housing. How many employees are going to be working at this operation? Where are they going to come from? Where are they going to live? We don't have any housing as it is now. Where are they going to be? Those were my big 3. So that's all I had was those 3.
Thank you. And I would have to say that I mirror all those concerns. It seems like everyone has the same ideas. Is anyone willing to have a motion they want to make, or you want to see what our options are?
Well, I'd like to go.
Okay, Daryl?
Gentlemen, on the surface, what you brought to us is something.
Turn that on, please.
So, gentlemen, on the surface, what you brought to us this evening, something this community has spoken of for a long time. From the tourism standpoint, we wish to have midweek business, which your conference center would ideally provide an opportunity for that to grow. We've spoken for years about extending West Main Street. I joked with Mr. Kronogi there about going to his car dealership and walking from where his car dealership is at the corner of Milam and West Main. But understand, once you move past there, there's very minimal tourism or foot traffic. There's some that will drive down for restaurants, things along that line. But as a whole, your foot traffic stops there. You can watch people cross the street there. There's a lot that you bring here that on the surface is what we've spoken of in the community for years need. However, in the magnitude that we are looking at, this is not what I think anyone on this commission has the appetite for. So understand the basic premise is correct, in my opinion and my observation, but beyond that, we lost sight of what really mattered.
I move that we deny this request.
I have a motion by Tim. Do I have a second? Second by Polly.
Roll call vote, please.
All right. Is there any other discussion?
Let's confirm, if we're denying it, a yes vote means that we're in favor of Tim's motion to deny.
That's for Mr. Giroux's sake.
Yes, let's just make sure we're clear on that.
The yes to deny.
Yes to deny the request. But is there any other discussion?
Shelby?
All right, we're ready for the roll call.
Steve Thomas,
Yes.
Tim Dooley,
Yes.
Holly Rickard,
Yes.
Tom Musselman,
Yes.
Jeff Lawrence,
Yes.
Daryl Whitworth,
Yes.
Jim Giroux,
Yes.
Janice Menking.
Yes.
So the question for these guys is, have we given you besides the emotional part, it's fine, have we given you a roadmap how to proceed and make this a project that we can work on? I don't know, I'm just curious.
Well, they can still go to city council. They can go.
Oh, they can't go to city council.
City, it goes to city council, and they can still override.
Okay, gotcha.
I'll speak a little bit on that. I think, yes, we've heard what we see a lot of passion. A lot of the stuff that we've heard, we did try to address in our, you asked about where the people are going to live. That's the whole reason why we developed housing for this project. It is workforce housing that we're developing here. The hotel's going to have over 100 staff members. And when we first came to the board back for the RFP part of it, that was the main question we heard. Where are the people going to come from? Where are they going to live? So that's why we did housing. There's probably a reason that the other development didn't work or they weren't able to get it done. It didn't financially pencil that way. And so for us, we felt that we were trying to accomplish something. We met with city, we met with people trying to accomplish what we thought would work, which is why we're doing the housing. The 48 feet was something that was already approved for the previous hotel, and we kept the hotel in that same direction. I think that's the only building that's 48 feet. We're not asking for, correct me if I'm wrong, staff, there's 48 feet anywhere else. We're not asking for 48 feet on the rest of the project. It's still that same 48 feet that was already approved. And so I think maybe in the future we need to get with you guys some more and discuss it. But correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, I think we do need some more guidance from you guys on what will work. I really don't have it. I'm hearing from some people that they don't want anything like this. For some people that they do see the benefit of the housing, the midweek business. So I'm still a little confused personally.
Well, we did not know, I mean, I heard that it was workforce housing, but it did not show up anywhere in the schematic. But also too, this is the first I've actually seen square footage numbers for the two main components. And the hotel conference square footage went from 97 to 227. And the retail restaurant went from, but it actually went down. So there's some other numbers in here. If you look at this,
And really,
in our packet.
I don't mean to interrupt, but really quick on that point too. You said the retail number went down. There's probably 15 to 20,000 square feet in that hotel number that is food and beverage outlet related, that is run by the hotel. It's just not dictated as retail on the site plan. So, 15 to 20,000 square feet, it's not making up that whole difference, but talk about mixed use. There's some.
Because it almost doubled the base.
Yeah. And I'll give you more color too. We are working on our side to reduce the gross square footage of the hotel. That is one of our goals as we're working through this conceptually, is how do we get the gross square footage of the hotel lower, right? We've requested a maximum of 200 keys. Right now we're only conceptually on plans. If we showed you more detail, we only have 193. So we're trying to reduce size.
Well, just out of curiosity, the first thing I thought of, I know this is some pretty valuable land because it is one of the really biggest developments we've ever put on. Would maybe some of that housing be better placed somewhere else in town? Would help lay out the scale of this whole project a lot better if you didn't have apartments and was it multifamily and single family in there.
Apartments and condos.
Apartments and condos. I'm just asking a question.
Yeah.
Give y'all some support.
I think that's a fair question. The way we approached it and what Acho mentioned, right, is there's going to be staff of over 100 people for the hotel, and there's going to be staff for the retail too, and there'll be staff for the spa, right, everywhere across the development. In our mind, right, and maybe this isn't the way it shows up on paper, but in our mind, if we request 258 units, a lot of that's going to be absorbed by folks who actually work here. Okay. And we've called around to developments now that are happening, with apartments that are delivering right now today.
Yeah.
And we understand what that costs for somebody to rent today. Now, I forget who mentioned it on this side of the room. This project isn't happening tomorrow. It's not coming out of the ground tomorrow. If it were to have been approved and we started construction, there's a fuse on the design timeline and the construction timeline, right? So economically, that changes over time, but we know that we're in line with what Fredericksburg 1-bedroom low-end rental market is today.
Except, I don't want to interrupt you, but you might understand what the market is in this town. This is a market for apartments that are 98% occupied, and we both understand economics in that if you're in a marketplace where demand outstrips supply, the market equilibrium rate goes up. I think the issue here, I mean, you've said that the apartments are going to be there for people who are working there. Well, okay, a $1,900 a month apartment means that you're going to have somebody that's making $52,000 a year.
We're not, yeah, we have an affordable component, workforce housing. We're not trying to market for 1,900. We're taking
Okay,
that
but
exactly into
but that's
consideration.
still 14. I think the workforce number that you had in there was $1,400 to $1,600.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's still for, yeah. So I think everybody on this commission is very sympathetic with you as far as understanding the difficulty that this community has with housing. We are victims of the market, of a market. People come in here and they want to live here. They've got the cash. Equilibrium price goes up. That's economics.
Difference in today versus when we first moved Seven Hills, which was almost 4 years ago. Maybe even 5.
I think 2018.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So the problem is that a lot of the factors that you're going to be impacting have already deteriorated to the past the painful point in our town. And we point to the ones we mentioned: water, staffing, parking. All that's gotten to the really painful point in the town. So you're bringing this to a whole different citizen than was presented 5 years ago. And I'm sorry that somehow or another that didn't get relayed to you, but that's reality.
And regardless of, I mean, y'all done a great job with when you talk about the different architectural concepts to make it look like it belongs here, but it still feels like San Antonio or Austin. And that's why we kept the chains off of Main Street. We don't want people to come here and feel like they're back in San Antonio, Austin, or Houston. This would make them feel like they're still in San Antonio, Austin, or Houston, and that's what we don't want them to think. Well, heck, I mean, I can stay at home. Why did I come here to go to a place that I can go to? So that's another concern we have. It feels like that's what we are. So
it may translate
it
may translate as passion, but it's the God's truth.
The size of it does
if
that.
If it's a duck, it's a duck.
You have listed here, gentlemen, on the views, you have 227,000 square footage for hotel and conference center. Is that the combined, or is that how much actual meeting space is in the conference center?
There's right now conceptually there's 8,000 square feet in the actual ballroom
Of usable space.
Usable space. Is it a single or divisible, or is that the entire?
It's dividable, so you would have 3 sections of 20.
Back when it was the RFP, back here we had a bigger version of it when the city was actually calling for a conference center. Once that didn't go through, we lowered the scale of that just to make it more of a hotel ballroom, do weddings, something like that. But we're not envisioning it as a conference center, which is more of a ballroom thing. But, so about 8,000 square feet of actually usable space.
And then there's a pre-function to that ballroom, and then there would be some very small breakouts or meeting rooms.
So while I do concur that your 190 to 200 hotel rooms would be the number that has been discussed here for many years for the conference center, 8,000 square feet is not going to give you enough flexibility to reach any of the meeting planners. Probably not going to be your associations based on the price point that you're looking at, which would be asking. But even when us talking about how big this is, 8,000 square feet is not going to make it a financially viable midweek business if you're looking at conference district midweek business, based on my years of observation.
That's what he does, professional.
So, and I realize we're sitting here telling you it's too big, and now I'm looking you straight in the face and telling you your conference space is too small to make it economically viable for a midweek conference center.
And they know that.
done that anyway, but it's still.
They said they're confused. Does staff fully understand everything that's happening tonight and how you can advise them because you're advising them? Y'all feel comfortable with it, Anna?
I do, and we've gone back and forth. I don't think anything's really. I mean, we've talked about parking, we talked about height, we talked about fill, we've talked about all these issues, and we let them know they were coming to an experience and passionate people that care about the community. They're invested in the community, and yeah, so hopefully it wasn't too big of a surprise. But I think we took good notes. I think we can help them if they want to find a path forward. Yes.
Well, we hope we find a path forward.
One other thing too, while we're looking at this comparison, and maybe would have helped, just we had a piece of the exhibit that shows the actual elevation study. We weren't necessarily requesting 48 feet across the entire site. The retail's lower than 48 feet. Part of the multifamily is lower than 48 feet. To your point earlier about the previous hotel having 3 stories on the front and 4 on the back, well, we basically did the same thing, and that's where we set the 48 feet from. And then I talked about the comprehensive plan earlier. They talked about utilizing topography of sites and being creative with creeks and sloping, and that's kind of that's the path we kind of went down, right? Is we tried to utilize the topography of the site and be creative in that way. So, in the future, maybe we present a little bit differently on the heights of the request.
Take a look at your elevation along Highway 87.
Yeah. Shelby, can you take
You
that
had
top image and expand it out
a couple
all
of
the way?
shots in the packet there.
Yeah.
That is, it's jarring. I
Yeah.
mean, if you drive from Mason down to Fredericksburg, that is going to be jarring.
It looked like the Kremlin.
Yeah, the 87 elevation to, as you're coming in from the north, that's a significant mass.
Can you break it down so it shows the entire 87 you had at the moment? The gentleman, from a particularly numbers, one of the components that we as a commission is size and scale. And exactly what Mr. Ricker is just saying, you're effectively building an entire 3 to 4 block city block as an entrance into the community. While not the most busy, and by no means the one that's coming in from 290 is going to see the most traffic, you're still effectively putting something into an entryway into Fredericksburg that looks like nothing else entering anywhere in this community. The biggest structure we have is Walmart. So.
Yeah, it's a statement maker.
Right.
It is.
Okay. So we move on.
Yeah. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, discussion.
All right, we have to approve some minutes from the regular meeting.
Got a correction?
Anybody got a
We have a
correction?
correction.
Yeah, we had Cindy's brought.
I sent Shelby some corrections. You should have those.
Could you share those corrections, please, ma'am?
I'm sorry, I don't have them in front of me.
Remember what they were? So
I'll look.
Cindy's Bracken's
One was a
names need to
name
be-
change correction.
requirements wasn't spelled right.
Page 6, Cindy's name wasn't spelled right.
He's not even here. So on page 6, I'm going to ask other members of the commission to correct me if I'm wrong, but on the 400 block of East Austin Street, we specifically required and requested a roll call vote. And I believe on that roll call vote, both Mr. Musselman and Mr. Dooley voted in the negative. So, thank you, Mr. Musselman. So yes, so it is stated that Polly Rickard made the motion to recommend approval of Z-2313, seconded by Cindy. All voted in favor and the motion carried. That is indeed incorrect. While the motion did carry, we had 2 nay votes by Mr. Musselman and Mr. Dooley on the roll call. No, yeah, because we have a history, Mr. Giroux, of looking back at these minutes, I want to make sure that they are correct so that we can reference them for the future.
Adam digging out the 7 pulse points from.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I checked to make sure I was right, Shelby, before I said anything. So
We'll have a motion
I'm not
to approve them as corrected.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes as corrected with the edits sent in by Mr. Lawrence and the ones noted by myself.
Second.
Motion by Darrell, second by Jeff. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, those approved of the minutes of the joint council and planning and zoning meeting on June the 19th. Motion for approval. Oh,
I move we approve them as presented.
motion by Tim, second by Tom. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. Let's go to item number 6, the discussion item, the director's report.
All right, so just a couple things to bring you up to date with. The first one will be the comp plan community open house. That'll be Wednesday evening, 3:30 to 7. It's a busy day in town. There's a lot of other things going on, but please plan to attend. It is a come and go open house. It's at the old sanctuary at Pioneer Museum, and so that'll be kind of the first draft. Not a physical draft, but the ideas of what they've heard. So similar to the first style of boards and kind of sections. So there'll be a lot of presentations there. No formal presentation, but kind of sections of the plan will be broken out by table. So that's Wednesday evening. Wednesday morning at 11, we have our joint city council P&Z meeting on the comp plan. And that'll be a 2-hour kind of presentation from HAF, and we've got a special presenter from the Hill Country Alliance, HCA, on some work they've been doing in the Hill Country and some things that we can consider as we adopt our comp plan and new ordinances. So that's
Where
11
is
o'clock
that?
at the Ladybird at the golf course, Ladybird Johnson Room.
Cardinal Room
Cardinal Room, thank you.
August the 9th.
on the 11th.
At 11 in the
On
morning.
the 9th, correct?
Yes.
August 9th. Okay.
That is the joint meeting.
So are we going to have a joint meeting?
Yeah, 11. Yeah, so the joint meeting in the morning, then the after evening is the open house. So all consultants are here. Yes. So that's comp plan. The 9th. Go ahead.
I'm looking at this here. You have Wednesday, September the 5th.
Yes.
Unless I'm looking at my calendar wrong, Wednesday is the 6th.
Okay.
What a year. Well, I think I'm looking at 2023, Jim, but yeah, it's been a long day. I have a P&Z meeting that day. On the 6th? Just
Okay.
July.
So we'll make that change. Yeah. So what the other thing we're looking at is the short-term rental amendments. So the public hearings have been set for Wednesday, September 6th, and City Council on October 3rd. So this is the letter that will go out to about 7,500 people. There is language on the back that we're required now to use because we are changing the zoning ordinance and potentially might create non-conforming use. So this is because of the state
New law.
SB 929, a new piece of legislation. We have to use this language in this font at this size, even though we don't actually anticipate creating a non-conforming use. So this will stir up the community. So when it goes out, you'll probably start getting a lot of questions. The draft, we're expecting on the 7th. So as soon as staff gets the draft, we will get it out to you guys for review.
August the 7th?
Yes.
Are we going
Next
to have
week?
another meeting with City Council
No.
about it? So
No.
we won't have a chance?
You'll make your recommendations on that amendment, and then we've given a month. So if you have significant changes, that we can go back and make revisions before the council. Yes.
So we will have a public hearing on September 6th about the draft, and then we'll be making our own comments about the draft tonight.
And then we will get our copy well ahead of time so we can review it and have time to talk to staff.
Correct.
So I've got a question here. Is on this sheet, is there a way to put a notice that says, the 88th Texas legislature required cities to make the following statement so that when the public gets this, they don't say, oh, that damn city of Fredericksburg, look what they're doing here. This is a requirement from the state. Is that right, Nick? So can we reference that this is a requirement that the state of Texas says we must inform you using this language?
Yes, we can put a little introduction.
Okay, because I don't think that the development department and the staff and the members of government of the city of Fredericksburg should have to take the heat from the public for something that's going on from Gomorrah on the Brazos or Colorado. Or
Are we anticipating a pretty, well, we don't know August, we don't know September yet.
It'll be a heavy agenda. Yes, ma'am.
Is this gonna be the first one? Are we gonna do this first, this public hearing first?
It'll be.
If we're gonna have a big crowd, we probably ought to do this one.
Then is there reason for us to put a plain warning that on this meeting before?
Was this the one we talked about?
if there's going
We
to
would
be a
have to
huge,
do, I would need to know that, yes, because this is a letter. This is what we would have to know.
There's a lot of
notice.
people that said, I wanted to go
Yeah,
speak, but I can't get off work.
my suggestion would be if we might want to think about, we start at 4:30 and we have it at the university.
We have what?
We have it at the university center instead of here.
So can I,
be that many people?
can I ask a different
think so.
question? Is it possible for us to do 2 meetings in a single month?
You can have a special meeting.
So can we do this one as a special meeting and do all the other business as a
Regular meeting?
regular meeting instead?
Single item agenda.
Single item agenda special meeting. Because I think it's unfair to the other applicants to
Right,
come
to
into
sit
that
there.
kind of a situation.
Sure, absolutely.
And
He's tough
now
on names.
having us focus on their applications, you know, and putting this all together, I just don't know that it's fair to the other.
Nick, you look as though you're contemplating something, sir.
We could do that. It's just a matter of having a quorum and having everybody notified about any changes.
So we'll have a regular P&Z meeting starting at 5:30, and then once we adjourn that, we'll go into a special. meeting.
We're not, two different days.
2 different days.
Different days, because
Different
she's
days,
saying
yeah.
the rest of our agenda is so full.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you sent out notices, you haven't sent out hearing notices.
No, that's,
That's why
We
we're
have
talking
to
about it
send
now.
those
Have to be the
Monday.
proper notice.
Pardon me?
I need to send notices on Monday.
So let's pick some dates.
Well, and so discussing the future agenda items, we have a site plan, a plat, and 3 zoning items. I feel like I'm missing another item, but that's what we have on the agenda. Nothing quite as substantial as some of the projects that were considered tonight, but still a substantial agenda.
I'm just trying to be fair to the applicants too.
A separate day at
I
a
think
bigger,
it's
at a
separate.
bigger venue. Just
We
in
do the
case.
other applicants and ask them to come forward,
Well,
and then do the other hearing.
we don't have any guarantee that we will be finished in that 1 hour with everybody, with the applicants.
Yeah,
I
I'd just
think-
rather do separate meetings, just.
This STR thing is so big that you know, you really don't, you could have 300 people or you could have 30. And I just don't, my feeling is we can have a separate meeting just for that. It's not unprecedented because we haven't published hearings before.
We could have our people talk.
So if
We did last time.
If we were to extend your meeting time, right now we're considering September 6th. It would give us more time for notice, but it would give less time for revisions to be provided to staff to then provide to council.
So can we keep this one on Wednesday, September 6th? Can we book a second meeting, say the 13th, for all of the other normal business, or are we having a shot clock problem on those applications?
yes.
So then we, okay,
Then reverse it.
Reverse it.
then we reverse it.
We have the STR meeting on the 13th.
Well, the only problem is
Or do we meet
gotta go to council.
2 days in the same week as opposed to 1 week and then 1 week?
So for example, regular business is September 6th, and then STR meeting September 7th.
Yes, something
For-
like that. Yes.
Okay.
So that
We
you're
do
not, we're not cramming the revision part, but we're separating the two pieces of business so that we're not
I would-
creating such a.
I would just ask maybe make it September 5th.
Well, September 5th is the.
So
city
that
council
won't
meeting.
meet the legal notice requirements. It has to be after the 6th.
Okay. Gotcha. I'll arrange. I'll be all right.
So we could do this one on the 6th. And if we do all the other business the day after on the 7th, are we okay with Shopify? Or do we need to flip it? Do all the other business on the 6th and do this one on the 7th?
Regular business needs to occur on the 6th.
Okay, so all of our business on this regular meeting on the 6th, special meeting on the 7th.
Yes, ma'am.
How's everybody's? Everybody make it
You're
so
in DC
happy.
meeting?
Because, so the problem on the 7th, guys, is that I need the form of you guys that don't have STRs.
I can help it.
Yeah.
You know,
You
I'm
got
on
rid of
SDR. Got rid of them. Turned in my SDR
So,
licenses.
but Tom, you can be there on the 7th.
Be there on the 7th.
Steve, you can be there on the 7th. And Tom, Tim,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah, all right. And
Daryl.
Cindy has
Me
STR.
too. Daryl. Don't forget Daryl.
That's right, you know, you're correct.
What about you?
Me, I can be here as far as I know.
So 5:30
just
on the
Cindy,
7th.
me,
5:30?
Yeah, Ollie and I and Cindy will sit in front
We'll just-
after.
Everybody got that?
So to follow up on that, time and location, because we have legal notice requirements. Are you wanting to hold the meeting here, or are you wanting to hold it?
I will limit
can
the
put
people
some
that
more,
can show
yeah.
up.
We can put more chairs.
For what? For SPR?
For the STR.
For STR.
So one of the
Just
things,
awesome. Find a bigger venue.
I think y'all need a bigger, I think we need a bigger venue.
so either direction we go, we'll have to confirm availability, whether it's for this room or another location. So staff will look into that. Are you wanting to maintain the regular time, 5:30?
Yeah.
So people can get off work and because they're gonna want, there's gonna be a high interest.
So staff will do some research, see availability for rooms, starting with this one, and then one of the other suggestions was the HEB room,
Yes.
and then we can get back to you tomorrow.
Anything else?
I'm
anybody?
putting it.
What about that
Can we
ride
stop
along,
off
that ride along
Mayor, you had to approve
discussion?
You get 1.5 times your regular pay.
One and
We
a
were
half times.
talking about
the-
doing it.
All right, we have
Driving
minutes, we have
around like
roll
we
call,
did.
let's call to order. We've gotten everything on the agenda,
Hang on a
except
second.
adjourning. What, I'm
Hang on a
sorry,
second.
Hannah, you got something?
So we took council and staff around to all the different developments. The mayor can speak to what he thinks that was worth it or not. I think it was really worth it. I think as a group, we ought to go see the same things that they saw sometime.
Okay.
You have a wine thing with water.
No wine's being provided.
All right, let's
But I'm
see
offering the
what
van
your,
again.
see what your schedules look like, staff. Let us know.
I think it was about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes, something like that.
We have to post it.
So how is,
Did you have anybody show up when you posted it?
No,
Did anybody show up?
there was no members of the public, no press. Nobody followed. Nobody was there before or after.
just out of curiosity, I mean, we're certainly at an unprecedented period of sport. There's not very many streets you can't go down that not some dirt being turned. How was staff handling this? Because you really have to increase people all the time.
Do I look older?
Look, you're grinning, but
I'm
that's
just
out of,
curious.
out
I
of
mean,
tiredness.
I mean, I know the stress.
I just can't
Well-
imagine putting this kind of thing together.
Yeah.
Just beyond.
Ken, how many meetings do you think they had over?
Well, I don't know, but I will tell you this, with all the stuff that all of us individually have been pestering them about through all of this stuff, individually and collectively, I don't see how they get any work.
I No, that's just
Well,
you.
but we're trying to do our due diligence.
Yeah, that's just you. That's just you.
So my old position will be posted hopefully by the end of this week, the HPO position. So that'll help free up some of the shared workload that we've got right now.
I thought they were, I thought they were trying to get through. I didn't realize that they were playing.
Well, they have for a while, so now we're ready to, yeah, try to find a replace. As you know, there's a difficulty in getting anyone to be able to move here. So,
Okay.
wish us luck.
Budget discussion. City council.
And we're also requesting a plan reviewer to help just do plan review. Somebody that's not going out in the field, that's only looking at building plans and site plans.
That'll help you all out more over there. Well, that, okay, cool.
We are hiring for a staff engineer, so if you know anyone, we have a current opening for a staff engineer. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make it.
A motion by Jim. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Polly. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Anybody have discussion on that? I didn't ask for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. I saw you as the only council member to say, sorry, but this was even too much for me. I mean, I'm usually pretty, I'm sorry. But not on this. No. I. Oh, yeah. Sure.